man's door. What must I do to be saved? Sell all your goods and give it to the poor. So they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. Jesus was a man, a carpenter by hand, carpenter true and brave. But that dirty little coward named Judas Iscariot laid Jesus Christ in his grave. People of the land took Jesus by the hand, followed him far and wide. Then to the rich that the poor would win the world, so they killed Jesus Christ on the fly. When the love of the poor shall someday turn to hate, and the patience of the workers gives away, look this therefore, you rich, if you've never been born, so they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. This song was written in New York City, of carpenters, preachers, and slaves. If Jesus preached today what he preached in Galilee, they would leave Jesus Christ in his grave. Jesus was a man, a carpenter by hand, carpenter true and brave. But that dirty little coward named Judas Iscariot, they laid Jesus Christ in his grave.
All right, folks. That was Bob Dylan for you. It's a rare Bob Dylan bootleg from 1960. He's singing Woody Guthrie's song, Jesus Christ, which is a great song. I'll read the lyrics for you real quick. But it's basically the essence of MAGA communism. Jesus Christ was a man that traveled through the land, hard-working man and brave. He said to the rich, "Give your goods to the poor." So they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. Yes, Jesus was a man, a carpenter by hand, his followers true and brave. One dirty coward named Judas Iscariot laid poor Jesus in his grave. He went to the preacher, he went to the sheriff, told them all the same, "Sell all of your jewelry and give it to the poor." So they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. When Jesus come to town, all the working folks around believed what he had to say. The bankers and the preachers, they nailed him on the cross, and they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. And the working people followed him around, singing and shouting gay. But the cops and soldiers nailed him in the air, and they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. Well, the people held their breath when they heard about his death. Everybody wondered why. It was the landlord and the soldiers that they hired to nail Jesus Christ in the sky. This song was made in New York City of rich men and preachers and slaves. If Jesus was to preach like he preached in Galilee, they would lay Jesus Christ in his grave. Yes, Jesus was a man and a carpenter by hand, his followers true and brave. One dirty coward named Judas Iscariot has laid poor Jesus in his grave. That is the essence of MAGA communism itself. This is I think, Bob Dylan is a little microcosm here of people's misunderstandings. You should read what Bob Dylan has had to say about Donald Trump, actually. It's quite interesting. It's intriguing that Bob Dylan is pretty woke on MAGA communism, where people otherwise might not be. Bob Dylan actually is not a fan of the 1960s and the New Left at all. Bob Dylan, in response to the New Left and the 1960s epic anarcho-leftoids, was to become a radical Christian. That is what Bob Dylan's response to the 1960s was. Bob Dylan considers himself a man of the 1950s. If you look at his paintings and his artwork, you can see that the 1950s to Bob Dylan represents a closer to idyllic circumstance for America. Not in all ways. Of course, Bob Dylan was very outspoken about all of the horrific things occurring in the 1950s as well. But the 1950s, what compared to today, was a worker's paradise. What does Bob Dylan like about America? He likes the commons, the common culture of America. He does paintings of diners and gas stations. Okay, that's America. America is this common sense, this common culture that we share. The oldies, the old songs, the tradition of American folk music in general. And what is America as well? America is deeply, profoundly Christian, not in a governmental sense. This is what people don't understand about the separation of church and state, but it's the same position that Marx had on the separation of church and state. Marx and Engels were not enemies of faith, they were enemies of what they called religion. And what is religion but the state church? That's right, they opposed the state church, just like the Puritans did, just like the nonconformist radical Christians of every era have opposed the state church in favor of a people's church. It's literally all the same. American evangelicism is the vanguard of communism in America. That is why these people are the ones who are singled out by the international capitalists as the largest threat to their eternal dominion. Religious fundamentalism isn't communism sort of like religious fundamentalism? If you're an enlightened atheist, then you'd realize that all of these people are tyrants in the same way that Christians are tyrants, in the same way that Jesus was a tyrant, right? They called Jesus a tyrant. He was called King of the Jews. This was an offensive thing because the Jews, of course, did not rule by their kings for a long time. If you read Kings, you can see why they have an opposition to kingship when it comes to governing the economy. That's why they transferred power from the kings to the priests. That's what the cathedral is the rule of priests, right? But what you want is you want Jesus, which is the rule of the priest and the prophet and the king in a single unitary figure. This is a much deeper hermeneutic for the development of communism over millennia than this supposed doctrinaire, dogmatic leftoid, a new leftist critical theorist who thinks that being a communist means agreeing to specific phrases as laid out specifically in the exact verbiage of this fucking like test of faith. They're like the inquisitors of communism. They go around, they go, okay, well, do you believe in the abolition of all property? And it's like, well, instead of defining what that means or what that was meant to express essentially in these texts that they pick up, instead of doing that, instead of elucidating the meaning of these texts, what they do instead is they want to command people to agree or disagree with this specific statement in a very actually tyrannical, in the colloquial sense, way. It's a tyrannical way of going about things. That's why they're saying like Haas didn't say the meme phrases and get them to agree to the meme phrases. He didn't say like be gay, do crime, and have everyone agree with that because that's the new slogan. That's the new slogan. That's what they mean by communism. They mean where you can chant be gay, do crime, and other people chant along. That's what they mean by communism at the end of the day. These are not real communists. These are anarchists who have dressed up as communists solely to antagonize the working class, because the working class in America have been presented communism as a directly anti-Christian, as a primarily anti-Christian movement, as a primarily anti-Christian form of governance. That is what they have been told. That is the propaganda, that for a reason. The reason for that propaganda is because Christians are the best communists. If you look at all of the communists that are successful in history, they have taken all of their inspiration from people's Christian movements, populist Christians, from evangelical Christians, from radical Christians. This is the fucking origin of socialism, all of these things. When Marx is talking about species being, he's talking about like it's from his like childhood conversion to Christianity when he's talking about the body of Christ, the unity of believers, etc. It's what he's talking about. Same thing with Engels, who was a pastor's son. I mean, these people were deeply engaged in Christianity. It's something that you can't that we take for granted, I suppose, or like that their opposition was this like one-sided backwardsness, where they were just opposed to the metaphysical like essence of faith itself, which is completely absurd. Anyway, I want to debate MAGA communism, so I only want to take people who feel skeptical towards the notion or have questions about the notion or what have you. I don't really feel like just having agreeing like back and forth. So I hope that you have some sort of a grievance or disagreement, we space. But you're up. What's up, we space?
Oh, what the dude? Hold up. My mom's on the other line right now, but she keeps asking me like to do some detox, like nicotine stuff. Um, but I just need to go to like IHOP or something to pick up some waffles or pancakes and like coffee, all
That
that
sounds
stuff,
good.
and then I'll be good.
You got any content here for the debate on MAGA communism, or do you just want to?
I could talk about my time in the DC juvie. Some cop pulled me over and I saw the red and blue lights like instantly. So I spoke to the cop and he was we kept going chit chatting like back and forth. And I told the cop, I was like, yo, I've been up for like 60 hours straight. And I was like, I guess he thought I was like texting and driving, and he pulled me over for a DWI, which I had no idea what that is. I know he just put that on there just to lock me up, and they put anything on those little yellow papers.
Yeah, well,
But
part of the problem with that is that the fucking police force are actually like run by these sort of like neoliberal metric maximizing type means. So like, they have like a literal quota for the amount of arrests that they need to get because that's how they raise funds for the police. So like all of that needs to be reformed, obviously. It creates perverse incentives like that. Like it's that guy will be getting handshakes and pats on the back for more
right,
people
right, right,
that he
right.
puts away. It's not about like, yeah, that's like the issue with applying this type of like manager, like it's applying like a sales rubric
Yeah, like
effectively.
a
Like how do you
PMC.
yeah, literally, yeah, it's the PMCization of, and like in the other sense of like private military corporation as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, the cops are
Santos.
for profit. The cops are for profit cops. That's the problem.
Yeah, Diaz, Diaz. I just told him like, yo, I've been driving for like 60 hours straight, just like going west of Texas. And I was like, if you want to put me up right now, I'm on like 10 different medications. I got Shipley's donuts in the car, black coffee, bear claws, all that stuff. And he was like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. And I was like, dude, I'm not trying to hear my rights read out. And he was like, okay. And I was like, oh, what's your badge number? I was like, oh, it's Cardano. I used to watch those cryptocurrency YouTube videos, and Cardano was like a good like CFO or whatever. But I knew that shit wasn't gonna take over.
All
And
right.
yeah,
Well,
that was basically it.
thanks for coming on, man. I'm gonna move on to the next one.
Uh,
All right, Jay Soms, you got a grievance, you got a debate, an argument. Do you have an issue, a misunderstanding? What do you got?
Yeah, I just have a question. It's not so much a grievance or anything, but I'm just wondering how you would like succinctly explain the idea if I'm just like having a beer with you, working class guy at a bar or whatever. Because I find that's like the
I
real
go,
test of an
so
idea.
so you say like what is the problem and what needs to be done? Like what's the problem? Well, we're being ruled by sociopaths and the oligarchs. We have immense centralization of wealth amongst these fundamentally irresponsible and irrational people who are destroying the world in order to maintain their property claims. So what do we do about that? We have a society crippled by debt. Like you just first lay out the facts. You lay out what is the case. What is the case? Like what is actually happening? You go, hey, what do you think's going on in Ukraine? And they go, I think this is going on. You go, well, what do you think about this? Like, like, is it possible that this is the case and actually? And if you're telling a narrative that makes more sense to them, they will tell you if it makes more sense to them than the one that they are accustomed to. And all you do is that and iterate on that for everything. I don't know. This is what I do literally all the time. I talk to people all the time about this stuff. People are
So,
pretty open minded about it.
oh, for sure. So I agree. That's how I try and communicate with people as well. But I guess my question was more specifically about the MAGA communism aspect of it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I say this all the well. It's like they're really perfectly suitable things. The only real problem is the term communism has very negative PR value
Yeah.
due to decades of psyops. But that's actually kind of breaking down at this point. I think the best thing to do in that case is to say, well, actually, there's a distinction between communism and other types of socialism. We do exist under a form of socialism, but we do not have communism. We, as communists, are just as opposed to the socialists that are in power today as you are. In fact, our goal is to give you more ownership of things. That is exactly what you say. Say our goal is to have the state take away what limited ownership you already have. We say the state is going to secure your ownership, and we're going to eliminate bourgeois private property, i.e., the ability of oligarchs and billionaires to own things like oil reserves.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Thanks, man.
It's very simple. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's really
definitely.
simple stuff. You have to draw a distinction between these types of property because it all comes from this like misunderstanding and conflating together of what property is. But communists are not opposed to people owning their own houses. Anyone and like the communists, quote unquote, who say we don't want anyone to own anything privately ever. These people are reactionary, like ultra leftoids, and they just serve reaction. They're literally destroying class consciousness and creating like boogeyman hysterical fears. It's the same people who are like, yes, we want to abolish the family and meaning it in like the most reductive, absurd sense.
Yeah.
When what was really meant by that was to abolish like the bourgeois family. And ironically, I was thinking about this. Cuba had that referendum, right, where they're defining family as like people who love each other, etc. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that people should be able to like, if you're like cohabiting with like, you have like a family friend or whatever who's like on hard times and they're in your house, like like you should be able to have like the benefits of like family incorporate these sorts of people as well. So that's the irony, is that the abolition of the bourgeois family is to define it by something like that, something common, like actually the love between people is what defines a family, because that actually just exposes that the bourgeois family is not even a true family, because it's like actually ours is just our property relations. Like this, our conception of family is just who inherits what, and like bloodlines legally, etc. That's the bourgeois family.
So really, like another way to put it would be just that to eliminate the way that people skirt around things that should be held in common.
Yeah, basically we say, and it's like what the term you want to use is commonwealth, because it's native to our own turf here in America. It's extremely influential. I mean, I'm in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts right now.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth, the idea thereof is that there are certain things, like, for instance, like all of the oil in our country, like, right, or like oil, natural resources, who owns these? Like, who made these? Like, God made them. Like, God produces these things. We don't produce them. We just extract them. So then it's like, so then we have we sell extraction rights. But what a communist would say is we're not going to turn extraction rights into a commodity on the market. The extraction rights belong to all of us.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And it's
awesome, man.
that simple. It's that
Thanks.
simple. Yep. All right, on to the next one. We got Joseph F. Joseph, what you got? All right, Joseph, you're not hearing you. On to the next one. Shogun of somewhere. Shogun, you're on. It's your time to shine. I'll give you like 5 more seconds.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
No worries, dude. Yeah, I got you. What's up?
How's it going? All right,
Going
so
pretty good, dude.
I wanted to ask you regarding this kind of branding of MAGA communism. I kind of see what you're getting at with this, but I mean, I would push back a little bit on the idea that this is flipping. I think that there's a lot of people that still find this to be very scary, and so is there any sort of
Who finds it scary? I mean, the Democrats
like,
find it scary. The Democrats actually put out an article saying that the things that they're most afraid of are Chinese communists and MAGA Republicans.
I saw that, yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
they should be scared. We do want to scare those people.
agreed. Still think
Okay.
you have a lot of median boomer types that are going to sort of pale when you say that, and I don't think it's without good reason. We have to acknowledge
Okay.
that.
Yeah, they
the
might.
leftists,
They might. We can acknowledge all of like the psyops and all of the like things that have led to people having such a disdain for the term communism. But I think that is going away. I think that these days these people have already accepted being tarred as everything across the world, why wouldn't they at a certain point seek to take up this term and use it for themselves?
Right. Well, I guess I just am sort of wondering if it's a term even worth fighting over.
I
I'm
think it
wondering,
is.
do you think it
I
is?
think it is. I think it is because I think that like there's no reason to cede ground to the enemy. We're not going to give them these things. We're going to take them for ourselves. That's the whole point. Actually, you could say a proxy for all of this is getting the term communism to be the property of these people and to be associated with these people instead of that's exactly what we're doing. That itself is the change in consciousness, is the redefining of this term in the popular consciousness.
I mean, I do think it's very interesting, for younger people to hear that configuration. I'm sure a lot of them dismiss it outright, but um, it obviously is gaining some traction. There's that Jackson Hinkle and all these other people now that have kind of
It's
adopted
it's
this.
normative. It's normative. The thing is that a lot of people, they are very closed in their, especially people who are extremely online and extremely into theory and these things. They only talk amongst themselves, and they're not like bar like you get. I made up the term barstool communism years ago, right? But the people who are just normal American working class people who like watch sports and think that all politics is just bullshit and scams are entirely right to think so, and they are theoretically correct in that position as well. And they are down. They're down for this sort of stuff. Like they get it when you explain it to them. They understand it. They hate this social democratic bullshit. Like people knew that like even people who are like, yeah, I like Bernie's ideas, but he's kind of a pussy. Like that's the kind of people that we're talking about, which is a vast majority of people. Most
No, I,
normal people get it. Like they already get it. They just have been completely psyoped in order to not have the language to give voice to these things that they already understand. We are just providing them the tools, the weapons.
interesting. I can see that. If you don't mind, I have sort of another pushback, a little bit more uh, related to Christian theology. Where does this idea come from that you were going to preempt the return of Christ and his establishment of the kingdom through
It's
political
not
action?
preempting it. It's not preempting it. That's well. Then what did the apostles do? Were the apostles preempting the return of Christ when they practiced apostolic communism? Were they being too? Were they getting ahead of themselves?
My understanding of Christ's teachings regarding authority is that essentially you're called to submit to authority. I don't find any evidence for
Yeah, we're
political
authoritarian
action.
communists. The authority is the authority of Christ. What does Christ say the economy should be? He speaks almost solely in economic parables. Is this economy under the authority of Christ? Or have we subverted, have we made a friend of the unrighteous mammon and worked mammon to benefit the working class, which is what Christ compels? Is that what we're doing?
Well, no, but I do think Christ says rather explicitly to render unto Caesar, and I don't see how that could have been a preferable configuration for Christ. So it seems
Well,
to me
yes.
that we're
Well,
called to.
for instance, we're not telling communists, we're not telling MAGA people to be bad citizens. We're not telling them to go out there and commit tax fraud and crime. We're not a legalist anarchists. We are saying submit to the authorities and practice civil disobedience, which is an American tradition directly inspired by Christian praxis. Practice civil disobedience, which is what Christians do in this country every day. Civil disobedience, like Christ
that,
did.
that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
I guess
We're not
I
anarchists. We're not saying go throw bricks through the windows. We're not saying that. We're saying those people are adventurous and those people are counterproductive and reactionary. We are saying practice civil disobedience.
no, I hear you. I think I am still a little concerned with it, just because kind of getting back to the confusion of these terms or sort of reappropriating these terms. I do think there is a little bit of opportunity for this to create some confusion. I'm obviously much
Good.
more attached to
Good.
Christianity than I am to communism. So,
Good. Well, I'm just saying, like, I'm saying we're bringing clarity, and clarity will create confusion to people who have bought into a false notion of the truth. Obviously, we want to rid them of this false conception of the truth and thus put them in a state of confusion.
I feel that agitate.
Yes, we want to revolutionize consciousness, which means we're going to upset the settled opinions on things.
All right. Well, this has been elucidating. Thank you for taking my call.
For sure.
Long time fan, first time caller.
For sure. All right, man. Thanks. I'll move on to the next one. We got Savitar. What's up, doggy?
Hi, Logo. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. I hope you're having a good morning.
Yeah, it's been pretty nice, man. I got my yerba mate here. I'm chilling.
Nice, nice. So I'm very much new to MAGA communism, mecha tanky thought. So, I'm not sure if this question has been answered elsewhere in the community. But what I want to know is what is to be done. It's a lot of the.
Well, we have to create a party of by and for the working class that is opposed to both of the ruling oligarchic classes. We would primarily seek to gain power on the lowest level of the state at the local level. We believe that people should go out and seize their local means of production, i.e., the local state and townships that they are a part of, to become politically activated and working in on that level and to build consciousness from the ground up. We're not looking for a top-down imposition or some type of coup, which was the fantasy of voting Donald Trump in. We're the ones who are saying no. We have to roll our sleeves up and take things back from the ground level.
Okay, yeah, that basically answers it. Is anyone?
Michael Hudson, for instance,
Mhm.
was saying that the surest path, revolutionary path forward in America right now, considering where we're at, is for people to practice civil disobedience with the powers of the local state. So that would mean doing things that are like illegal in the eyes of the feds, for the benefit of your local community. And like, for instance, being like, we will not allow any police to kick people out of the houses that they are in this district. If the IRS is coming to take a lien on this person's house, we will arrest the IRS. And then you practice civil disobedience on that level. It's all about civil disobedience. You're not going to openly do that. And then if they send the feds to arrest you, you go to court. Because what all of this is propaganda. All of this is good. All of this will get more people to understand the stakes of what is actually at stake here. And everyone will pick their sides
So
in
it's
these conflicts that we create.
so it's a lot of what, guys like Gavin Newsom in California are doing in regards to defending undocumented immigrants, or what DeSantis is doing in Florida, where he's sending these immigrants, which he did
Yes,
not
this is already
authorize. Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
This is already happening. This is already happening. What we have to do is do that for our ends.
Okay. What Okay, yeah, that basically answers it. Thanks for taking my question.
For sure. For sure, man. All right. All right. Chris Jr., you're up.
Hello.
Howdy.
Okay, my question is, in first off, huge fan. I've spread the idea. I've lived all over the country, and I like spreading the ideas around. And a lot of people my age are like really grasping the idea of like the psyop against communism. None of us have ever been taught it. All of that shit. And so my question is like pushing MAGA communism. Are you in a way telling people to vote Republican? Because I just don't find that
No,
revolutionary
no, no,
whatsoever.
no. No, 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 no. But like the thing is that the Republican Party does have an internal contradiction within it that the Democrats don't seem to actually fundamentally have. because the Republicans will not vote for a Republican that they do not recognize as being an authentic Republican, for instance. They won't vote cynically. They will just choose to not vote. They will, quote unquote, throw their vote away rather than vote for a candidate who they do not accept as a comrade, you could say. That's why, like people, and like this was like why Trump was important, because he represented a sort of purity test as to whether or not people would bow before their interests, or if they would oppose their hegemon that they had selected for the party. Obviously, the Republican Party has completely turned on the movement in the first place. You had all these like never Trumpers in 2016 cynically coming behind him in 2020 until they could then draw a line and say this has gone too far, and side with the prevailing unipolar oligarchy. That's why it's good to go for Republicans, but we have to emphasize and if we're going to if that goal is to, you could have a debate as to whether or not it's even feasible to start a third party. Whatever happens in America, what tends to happen is that when a third party comes to dominance, it replaces one of the prevailing parties. So what party would be replaced? It would be the Republican Party in our prevailing dialectic, because the Democratic Party represents the unity of all of these myriad bourgeois forces. The Republican coalition is very tenuous. The Republican coalition is much more tenuous, and the Republicans are much more afraid of their voters than the Democrats are, because the Republican voters are not as disciplined. So we want the Republican voters. We want the voters, but we want them to vote for people who we like and not for shitty corporate Republicans who they already hate. All you have to do is explain to them the distinction. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're not, the solution isn't just to do this new right neocon bullshit. The solution is to radicalize MAGA even further.
I just feel like most people my age and younger don't they don't subscribe to being a Republican or a Democrat, and
most people don't subscribe to being either.
right.
However, these days, if you describe yourself as an independent, Democrats will describe you as a Republican, because they describe all third party activism as being counter revolutionary against the vanguard party of the Democrats. That's why they tell people that they blame Green Party candidates and Libertarian Party candidates for peeling votes away that they from the Democrats. That's why they hate these any attempt to establish a third party, is because it pulls votes from them.
The only Republican thing that I think that we could grasp with them in a short period of time, and I mean that in maybe a couple election cycles, is foreign policy. But other than that, I really just don't see.
Well, we're gonna have a big tent party here, pal. We're gonna have Mormons on our side here. We're gonna have the Mennonites on our side. We're gonna have all of these sort of communities that are part of the normative Republican voting bloc, because these people are part of the working class. The working class is divided between these parties, but the more and more people are becoming independents. There's a lot of people leaving the Democrats and becoming independent, just as many as there are Republicans leaving the Republicans and becoming Democrats.
So Trump running independent would probably be the best thing for this movement to happen. Do you think that would be true?
Trump isn't going to run. The thing is that a lot of the MAGA movement haven't fully haven't come to a full nuanced understanding of what Trump represented. Because the point that we're trying to say is that MAGA isn't about Trump. MAGA is about the people. The people were the people who gave Trump power in the first place, and they can give themselves power instead of needing this figurehead here. Trump is effective. We shouldn't just tell people they're dumb and horrible people for voting for Trump. I think that they were perfectly in the right to do so, given their options.
Okay, I agree with a lot of the platform. I just don't I just don't think ever supporting the two-party system or voting Republican is revolutionary whatsoever. That's just my stance. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm saying we should establish a third party, or just have people running as independents in general. Like, we don't even necessarily need this to have a party here. We want to have like a wide coalition, as big of a coalition as possible. Like the original term for like the Rainbow Coalition, like from Fred Hampton, wasn't this like dogmatic unity, but a unity of purpose, between different peoples. That's the goal. We want a unity of purpose, which means having a project, a collective project that we can all agree upon. That's what MAGA communism is. It's a project. It's not just an ideology. It's a project. It's a positive project. It's something that we're building. All right, Joseph is back. We'll see if he's got his mic ready. Joseph. Joseph. I'm gonna kick you again, bud. Sorry, you gotta be ready. Harry LaBum, you are up. Harry, are you here? All right, peace out. All right, Aaron, my boy. Aaron's been on a few times. I'm sure we're about to get biblical here, Aaron. What's up? I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know how it is. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Um,
Amen.
so, kind of earlier, you were asking, like, who believes this? And I guess this is one of those things. I've had the intellectual foundations of my worldview blown out in adulthood. I was fortunate enough to have it early enough to not be, to not let my natural, like, response to this conversation shut my mind to it. But I guess am one of those people who to whom communism is not just unacceptable, but also untenable, and is also um, so. What I'm based on what I've heard from you, I know that you're thoughtful enough that there's got to be more to it that I've heard, but you keep describing a psyop against communism. And my question for you in the first instance is, how does that comport with the general trend of the historical narrative of the academic bourgeois class really liking communism for a majority
They
of
don't like
the 20th century
Bolshevism.
before it got to a point where they literally only gave up endorsing and supporting it in the places where it was happening in the world because it became too, like, you couldn't be taken seriously if you did once the body piles got so high, so to speak. So my question is, how much of that perspective, um, I think that's what the guy earlier was getting at, is that a lot of us aren't just told that communism bad. There's a lot of things ostensibly in the world that stand as proofs that communism bad, and I'm wondering how you would address those maybe normie level responses like
Well,
100 million bodies in
these are
China,
the
etc.
same thing has happened to the French Revolution, hasn't it? I mean, I remember actually in high school, really early on in a European history class, we were learning about the French Revolution, and there were parents who were complaining that we were not being critical enough of Robespierre in class, right? Because like this, so you already have people, like, there are people who would deny the purpose or the, like, the meaning effectively of the French Revolution, or this type of like just wishing away of historical tragedies, of like cruel necessities, as Cromwell would say, right? This isn't what we're doing. We're trying to give voice and reason to and articulate the rationality behind all of these things. I think that a lot of the anti-communism of like the people in America, or like this anti-communist rhetoric, a lot of it is rooted in real truths and things that I think that we should not shy around. Like I'm not like a huge, like the Soviet Union failed as a project for good reasons, and a good part of it had to do with them abandoning a type of actual like popular rule in favor of a rule by the intelligentsia, and this is like what the early communists, like the Bolsheviks, were warning against in the first place. They became much closer to like the social democratic norms of like of elitist socialism, Fabianism, etc., that comes out of the British and Nordic schools of socialism.
My question also tying in with this is how can you, I guess my and I don't mean this to be necessarily like impugning, but what I mean is how can you not see with what you know about man and the state of man? How can you not see that if you delegate the amount of authority to the state that would be required to execute communism, that you're just creating a bourgeoisie that you happen to give all
No,
of the
we're not
monopoly on force as
executing.
well?
We're not giving power to the state. We are giving power to the people through the state. That's the
Yeah, but how that
distinction.
works
We're
itself
not just
out
giving it.
is that there
No,
are
no,
people in the
you're being a
state that
fatalist.
hold
You're
the
being a
levers.
fatalist. You're being a
No,
fatalist here.
I'm being a person who understands
You're
that
saying that it's impossible to do. You're saying
no, I'm
effectively, well,
not.
that'll be new boss, same as the old boss. There's no way that we could effectively create people's power through the state. What that will ultimately do is to create a new elite. It'll create a new intelligentsia, and we'll have the same problems that exist in the 20th century. But I think
Well,
that we
no,
can actually
I
learn
have
from the
alternate
20th
proposed
century.
solutions. I mean, I have alternate
What's your
proposed
solution?
solutions that I mean, fundamentally, they're the kind of thing that I one thing I do fundamentally agree with is your approach, which is the sort of civil disobedience via being a good citizen but being civilly disobedient.
Yeah, you have to be in order to be a good citizen. And being a
Yeah,
good citizen means practicing civil
well,
disobedience.
yeah, in this system for damn sure, because being a good
Absolutely.
citizen means being righteous, and in an unrighteous system, it doesn't work. But
Absolutely.
what I'm trying to get at is like I have this concept of the authority of state and all of that from, I guess it'd be like traditional, like Reformation 1600s era sphere sovereignty type stuff, where you've got the family, you've got the church, and you've got the state, and those are powers that God has given. Those are institutions God has placed
What
for
is the
the
church?
flourishing of humankind. The church is the
What is
body of believers.
Okay, so that's not a particular church, right? That's just the body of believers, right? So and the true church is all of humanity, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's the new race in Adam, and all therein.
So everyone.
Um, no, I don't think that
Who
includes
isn't
every
in the
like your
who isn't a part of the church?
people who aren't Christians,
Why?
because
How do you know they aren't Christians? They don't
I
call themselves such?
okay.
Or what do you
So
mean?
there is of course the principle of the invisible versus the visible church. The invisible church is the
Absolutely.
body of people that
Yes.
will all at the all sum total of time be there before the throne, so to speak. And then you've got
And
the visible church, which is the progression.
who alone
We know that
knows
there are people in the
who
visible church who are not in the invisible church, and we know that there are people who are not in the visible church that are in the invisible church. But we have
who
to, for the
knows.
purposes of,
So who
you know,
knows who the church is?
it would be Christ.
Okay,
He
so
knows
we
the
can't
sheep.
know that, can we? So we can't determine who's in the church and who isn't in the church, right?
We can determine who ostensibly at a certain time claims to be a member of the church,
Sure,
and that's the
but that
best we
doesn't
can
mean
work
we're
with.
right. Exactly. So what do you think that would be the best way to go here? If we think of the parable of the tares, what should our policy be when it comes to determining who is in the church?
Well, I think Matthew 18, church discipline, in the structures given in local congregations,
I think we should just
like
judge
Christ
by the
gave.
fruits. Judge by the fruits,
And
So is
well,
this
that's
person
yes,
how does this
yes, that
person
is.
taken? Is this person a pillar of their community? I mean, I don't know. Like, do they have to profess a certain doctrine? I don't think so. I'm more interested in the fruits. I'm more of a pragmatist, I guess, in that sense, metaphysically. I don't think it's
And
that critically important to have
and I
people all saying the same thing.
and I think it is, but I don't think that there. I do recognize a distinction between co-belligerents and allies. There are people who are, for whatever reason, at this time and place, aligned with your purpose that are not your allies, that in other circumstances would be your enemy. And then there are people who are truly allies and that they are united with you in the purpose for the same reason that you are. All that to say, I'm not saying, like, what's weird is I used to have a far more tight, like, I used to be way more tight on certain doctrinal questions being Christian or non-Christian because I've realized how wrong I've been, and in humility have submitted that as, you know what, there are people who I believe were good Christians in the past who would have had me killed for what I profess to believe. And I can live with that because they were doing the best they can with what they had access to, and a lot of people made a lot of arguments in between, and here we are, right? That time moves on and the kingdom progresses. But with these, my problem right now with the governance that we have, and this ties into the Republican or Democrat thing, both of them, you mentioned corporate Republicans. That's a good way of putting it. Basically, you can just refer to it as the deep state or the administrative state, just a group of people who are there for the purpose of the state, irrespective of their representative responsibility.
Not even the state, but for their donors. So it's really more for capital. It's not even like they represent statesmanship or something. Like, we're giving them far too much credit, or I think libertarians give them far too much credit to call them statists. Like, they're anarchists and they just represent the interests of the capital that funds them. They don't give a fuck about the state in this type of Republican sense, in the sense of like the common good. They don't give a
What I'm
fuck about the
saying by
common good.
statist is that they are on a ship with a lot of other people. They are at the helm of the ship, and they care about the ship because they're on the ship. That's what I'm.
Yeah, but
That's to the extent I'm referring to it.
their ship is a pirate ship, right? Like, they're not it's not our ship. They're not our captains. They're privateers who are hired by capital to raid us and pillage us. That's all. They're Vikings. They're not people's kings. They're not our elected officials in that sense. They're basically deputed to the various locales that they're given and voted in just based off of a kind of partisanism, which is fundamentally uncritical. But I think the Republicans are becoming more critical of this sort of partisanship, and they are more capable of pressing their elites into at least pretending to represent them.
And yeah, I see. There's a lot there, and the ultimately, man, I'm with you if we're going to talk about on the frank level of, are these people like for example, under the quote unquote law of this land, which is the authority, like, is the symbol of the authority given to this state in their role as a state, by the rules of that, every kind of documentation for owning anything shouldn't exist. You shouldn't have to register your car. You shouldn't have to pay property tax. There's so many things that are
Yeah.
wrong on the system's own terms. Not to mention, not to mention all the things that are wrong in general. I think that the Constitution didn't go far enough. I think that all of
Yeah.
those things should have been far more explicitly Christian, and if they were, people would have been tempered in
Well, the
ways
thing
that
is,
perhaps
man.
they might not have. But all that to say, like, I don't believe in interest. I think that that's
Yeah, me
interest is
too.
sinful. I think that all of the right. So you can see here that I'm
Well,
coming from a
I think
traditionally conservative backdrop, but I have these ideas
really
that I've been
radical.
convicted to through the scripture.
But if you
Because
think about it, those ideas, like, they're not really conservative. In
no,
order
no,
to
no, no.
oppose that idea,
That's what
they're
I'm saying.
revolutionary.
I'm
They're
saying I come from the
revolutionary ideas.
conservative backdrop as somebody trying to fight within the rules of this system now. And I share some of your more quote unquote radical leanings and convictions. What I'm trying to get at is I don't think communism, from what I understand of it, and this might be the problem, is in any way a solution other than new boss, same as the old boss. I think that we would need a
Well,
fundamental
let's read.
reorganization
I'm
and
just going to read
reshuffling
from
of the authority back to
Acts
those
2.
spheres.
Acts 2:44. This is in the King James. And all that believed were together and had all things in common, and sold their possessions and goods, and parted them to all men as every man had need. And they, continuing
Indeed.
daily with one accord in the temple, and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. Now, is
Indeed.
that impossible? Did that happen or not?
It did, and I'm not saying that it's not possible. What I'm saying is, I don't necessarily. I think that that's closer to what the standard should be. I don't think that's what it is, because if you really look closely, you see that that's because Christ had told his church to remain in Jerusalem for yet 40 more days after his ascension, which is long after the feast of Passover was gone. And so, as so doing, these people who are from other places had nowhere to stay, no way to make, they had the money that they brought for the festival, but other than that, right, they have to be taken care of. And I think that a true picture of what
Yes,
Christian
because
economy living in
all right,
strength could look
let
like.
me let
But
me
when
pull it
you
together
when
for
you
you. Let
spread
me
it
pull
out
it
into
together for you.
scale,
So you could say, let me pull it together for you. So what you could say is that these people, because they were in a state of privation and a state of need, right? That you have this jubilee coming then, but not perpetually.
absolutely,
It's coming
absolutely. And it's
perpetually.
also
It's
not by
about
the
the
state, is it?
cyclical.
It's
Well,
also
well,
not
what
from the
is the
state,
state?
is it?
What is the state?
The
The
state is
state.
the government, whatever that happens to be. Now, there is the church, which, see, this is what I'm saying. I think that you are taking this authority and this responsibility that belongs to the church and trying to hand it to the state and for them to do it. And what I'm saying
I'm trying
is
to hand it to the
that's when
people.
things get bad.
I'm trying to hand it to the people. I'm not trying to hand it to an institution for the institution as some sort of like hypostatic entity. I'm trying to find the convenient means, the pragmatic means to give this power to the people. And in this circumstance, you could say that the church was the pragmatic means here. These people came together and did that. But how would we be able to do that today? If we want to do this today, we can do it on this kind of small level as well. We can
Oh
practice this
yeah.
among, I mean,
No,
families
and I
practice
mean
this amongst themselves.
just imagine for me for a second that if the federal government didn't take, 47% of your income, how much more of you as an individual could you not only provide better for yourself, but
But for
alleviate
others,
privation for other people?
absolutely,
And to do that
absolutely.
as
That's
a
why,
voluntarily thing
yes.
that comes from the heart, right? We're prepared unto good works that were prepared for beforehand for us to do. And I'm saying that I think we're agreeing, but I think the way
Well,
you
so
use
what
the
we,
term
but why?
state
Where does
and the
where
way you
does
use the
people's
term
money?
people
Okay, so what we have to do,
confuse me.
right? What we have to do is a lot of these people they had something to give away, right? A lot of them did not, but some of them did have things to give, right? Because like these goods that they shared didn't emerge ex nihilo, right?
Right,
Like they shared amongst from what they already had. But what is the problem in
right.
America today is that everyone's oversaddled in debt, such that this isn't even possible. Even though if you look at it and you break it down, poor people give far more money to charity and they give far more money away in charitable pursuits as a percentage of
Yep.
their total assets every single year than the wealthy. So what we actually want to do is to give as much as possible to these people so that they can be even better and they can perform even better goods and deeds for each other. So how do we do that without using the state to eliminate these debts?
So the problem, I would say, to the issue right now, at things as they are, um, and this is actually something, just not to drop this in any way, be disrespectful for one of the gentlemen who was on earlier saying that he doesn't think supporting the two-party system in any way is quote unquote revolutionary. And to that I say, if you believe that, then you fundamentally do not understand the structure and the way in which the nation is set up and the way in which we live. It will always pan out to be two parties. You just have to take over one of them
No,
to get what you
no.
want
This
done.
is this is what I
But
this is my vision is this. This is what Engels said about American democracy as well. He said that our party system is actually very unique because it is not split along lines of interest. It is split across every single level of society. For instance, there are Republicans and Democrats in every single community and every single breakdown of every single demographic. There are people who
exactly,
vote for Republicans and people who vote for Democrats because they are not split on this level. They're split on a sort of temperamental and cultural level, which is not even a fundamentally political level. It's not even a political split. So what happens is what we want is to create a single party that takes over and destroys both of the parties, such that we have a one party, or you could perhaps say a no party state, in which all candidates are quote unquote independent, and Congress being a representation of the independent representative elected by each constituency represents the party. That's how it was defined in the Constitution. This factionalism is a complete
so I
abrogation
think
of
I
what the
okay. I think
Constitution laid
okay.
out.
All right. I can follow you there. And to that, I say I haven't thought. I guess I haven't thought of it in those terms, but I kind of like just on the just initial reaction. I kind of like what I'm hearing because that's kind of what I was thinking about anyway. But what I'm telling
Exactly.
you is how we get there is less state. Like that's actually the problem
Yes,
because
less federal state.
the
Less
only
federal
thing that
state. Yeah.
is,
We're
well,
going to destroy most of
less
these
state in
federal
general,
organizations.
but yes, particularly the federal state. So
Mostly the federal
what I
state. Let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. Like, what's the real thing that sucks up all of our money? It's the military-industrial complex. It's the Department of Defense. It's the CIA. It's the FBI. It's the
Indeed, and
DEA.
it's the same
DHS.
reason that all of these stupid tentacles of the eldritch horror that lives beneath Washington that gets to all of us is because of their stupid laws like interstate commerce, Wickard v. Filburn, all of these horrible things that have been done on the system's own terms. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't necessarily at some point start over, but I think we don't have to. I think we can by living as good Christians, first of all, because that's just all going to outflow. All of the things that we're talking about, in my opinion, outflow from a new heart.
Yes.
Like that's where the desire to
It's a
give comes
revolution of
from.
consciousness. Yeah, revolution
Ever
of
since I
consciousness.
felt like ever since I felt like I truly came to faith, I have given money that I didn't have necessarily to give because I had faith, and I've never, the sparrows eat better and the flowers dress better than the kings of the earth, and
Yes.
they don't have to store and sow and all of that stuff. So I get that, but I would say when it comes down to probably the nitty gritties of communism as an economic system, I can't I can't so to answer, sorry, all this was to answer your question of how can we get the money into the hands of those people that distribute it without the state. And what I would be saying is if you just deleted 85% of the federal government right now, which Trump and people are actually, for the first time in
Yeah.
my lifetime, Republicans are talking about dismantling the FBI. So say what you
Yes.
want about it not being revolutionary, but right now there are people in the Republican Party that are pushing for revolutionary
Yes.
things
They
because these are
want to
things that
literally
were never
defund the
going to go
police.
away.
Yes.
They were never going to go away. So all that to say, like the president, if you get one, can just dismiss these agencies. They
Yes.
only exist as a under the
So
principle
you're
of his
saying
power and all that.
we
Saying, if we
need.
get rid of income tax,
Yes.
we get rid of the Federal Reserve, we get rid of all
Yes.
the stupid shit, then people would have the money in their own hands that they make from their own labor. You wouldn't need to necessarily, like,
Well, people
I
wouldn't
would
even
agree
matter.
for like protecting these resources, like you were talking about, like oil reserves and things like that. I could be persuaded for there to be controls and limitations on individual agency and enterprise. But in general, you don't have to go to the other end of communist controls if you just cut so much of the half-hearted
Yeah.
socialist oligarchical bullshit we have now.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we believe in. That's like what MAGA communism is. The thing is that what you're basically saying is we need a revolutionary dictatorship of the proletariat to like liquidate these reactionary oligarchic institutions, which are fundamentally unconstitutional. I agree with you 100%. But what that requires
I
is
would I would
actually
make
building
I would make the
communism.
distinction actually, and this is one thing that I let slip earlier, and I promise after this I've pretty much I've taken up enough of your time, and I appreciate it. I hope it's been helpful to have somebody who is a little more
Oh, it's great. It's great.
unknowledgeable in, I guess, in your verbiage about these things. But I would say the difference between where I stand and what a lot of people seem to be saying is I don't find myself to be considered revolutionary. The word
You are a
reformation.
revolutionary, dude. Yeah, same
No,
difference.
we are
We're looking for,
reforming this
yeah,
system. Like,
yeah.
because the revolution would be to burn it down and build it new.
That's
Reforming is
what.
to change it from the inside out, which is what I
So we're
feel
saying
happens to all of us as people and to the
so
government as a whole.
that's what it's going to require, though, because what you're effectively saying is that we're going to dismantle the vast majority of what we would call the state, or like state power, in the sense of these federal institutions that run out of the executive branch, which are unconstitutional and should not exist. That is a revolution. That's a juridical revolution. Like, we're going to have a revolution in jurisprudence itself in
Oh
order
yeah,
to
no, I mean
recognize
judicial
the state.
review. I have good legal arguments for why judicial review shouldn't exist. So I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, I am a person who holds a lot of
you're
quote
a
unquote
revolutionary,
radical
my
and
friend.
individual
I appreciate
sections, but
the.
I don't. Yeah,
I
I don't know. I
appreciate.
just was trying to figure out how I fit.
No, I appreciate it because I think that you are like a lot of Americans in that you feel more comfortable with this verbiage that is actually more native to us, like things like reform, right? Because like the Reformation is like where we get our becoming, we're children of the Reformation here, so like we take Reformation as a positive, right?
Well, and
Whereas
you
like
know I'm a dirty,
revolution,
dirty
but
Calvinist too, so I love the
yeah,
Reformation, but
yeah,
it's
but we
a
also had the American Revolution, right? So it's like there's no it's actually patriotic to be revolutionary as well. Like we all support the American Revolution.
for sure. And I it took me a while to get to the point of reconciling that the tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants on occasion, as a trying to figure out, can this fit, can this whatever. And I the thing is, what's hilarious about it is that for all of the people itching for a boogaloo, and I for a while was kind of black pilled in one of them, but what you don't realize is that the the Empire of Rome, arguably one of the greatest empires in history, was brought down not by weapons, but by the blood of their shed, quote unquote, enemies. So it looked like they were winning the whole time.
Yeah,
In the
that's why
Colosseum, it
we're
looked
we're
like they
going to
were
be
winning.
martyred. Like that's the
And
thing.
so
Like
it's one of those
when we're
things is that,
talking about civil disobedience, civil disobedience means being willing to be martyred in this very real sense.
but I will say that people like if the order of things is correct and it begins in the changing of hearts with the gospel and people realizing that people are fallen and fucked up, and yeah, they are too, and all of that they see is real and that they can be free. Once all of that happens and then they start living like they're free and living in faith under a benevolent God of the universe, only at that point can you truly be free of the fear of death. And if there's anybody listening, I know it sounds crazy. I've almost died. I've counted 8 times in my life. I've had 8 either almost directly fatal encounters or near fatal encounters. And I was terrified my whole life because of those things until you don't have a reason to be.
Yeah, I feel
And
you, dude. I
so
remember when I lost
freedom will
fear
set
of
you
death.
free.
Yeah, freedom, but it ain't free. Freedom ain't free. It's a lot of suffering too.
The
You don't
blood of
just
the
get this
martyrs
for
is the
free.
seed of the church and is the leaven
Amen.
and the loaf of the kingdom of God. So keep
Amen,
on it,
brother.
man. I
Amen.
appreciate you.
Keep on it, dude. I appreciate you. See, this is like basically a model of what I would think is the most revolutionary type of activism, which is the communist economics, like this type of like more hard science of dialectical materialism in dialogue with what I think is the deep well springs of transcendental theology and metaphysics. I think these things work hand in hand. I think that they are meant to be together. Like I think they give light to each other such that like we can talk about economics in this sense and like more pragmatic means of like seizing state power for the people and things like this, while also getting these sort of like I think generally people on that economic wing swing towards a type of reductionist atheism. But they have a lot, just as much to learn. These like grad school communists have just as much to learn from the Christian tradition as the Christians have to learn from them. I think that the coming together of this opposition, supposedly, is the most revolutionary and radical thing that we can do today. And that's what I seek to do all the time. So I thank you for coming on once again, man. I'm going to go on to, what is this? Partisan Sean Prajapati. You're up.
Hey, Logo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. What's up, dude?
Oh, okay. Well, it's first of all, it's like a real pleasure to talk to you because well, you're really cool and stuff. So,
Well, thanks, man.
all right. So, what I specifically want to ask is, with if the American people have their form like being represented in the party of the Communist Party, would it be necessary for those like the representatives in the Communist Party to be atheists, like actual, like
Well, this so what's referred to. So this is good. I can clear this up a little. So when we're talking about state atheism, like the state being atheistic or not, it means that the state does not take the role of the church, or it does not privilege any particular church. There's no state church. There is a separation between the role of the state and the role of the church. This is like when Marx and Engels were talking about this. This is something that had to be accomplished in Europe, but was already accomplished in America. And Engels, writing about this, says that what you see when you have this abolition of religion as recognized by the state, i.e., there being no privileged state church, what you see is a spread of the faith. When churches become a private matter, or I'm sorry, I got to mute you for a sec. But when faith becomes something that the people own, as opposed to something that the state owns for the people on the people's behalf, it proliferates wildly. Like when you had this separation of church and state in America, you had the Great Awakening, and you had the massive proliferation of Christianity. America has had a separation of church and state, and has far more faith, has far more people who are Christians and people of faith in general than these places that maintain their state churches, because it turned the people against the state church by recognizing that the church was effectively the Antichrist, and it's been bought out by the creditor powers and these sorts of things. Whereas in America, your church, for instance, if you're me right here and I look around, there's myriad churches. There's so many different churches, and they're all none of them are like state entities. They're not. They're governed by the people, at least depending on their type of like ordinances or whatever, right? I'm not talking about the Catholics, but there are myriad congregational churches and Baptist churches and Methodist churches and various other types of churches. Like, you have the freedom in America to start your own church, which isn't the case under like a state dogma of religion. A state imposed condition of religion would not mean that you have this ability to start your own church, if that helps.
Oh yeah, I completely understand that, because like if you make it a legality, make the church a legality, that would be like almost ossifying it into like a fixed form. Whereas like if you do it like Ron Paul Maoism, you give it to like the marketplace of the people, and like they actually own it through their own labor, and
Yes,
they
precisely,
reproduce it.
precisely. That's one of the things is that ironically, so you have like people like Catholics, or like, you know, a lot of these more institutional churches like Episcopalians or whatever, and they really don't like the flourishing of evangelicism in America, and they don't like that people, working people, they choose to go to churches that they don't want, that they would rather than be forced into a specific like pedagogical line or something, a specific type of catechism. They would much prefer if it was enforced by the state, that everyone had to go to be a Catholic or whatever, or it had to like go through the same like catechism, the same educational pedagogical process, as opposed to giving them the liberty to choose to follow the pastors and preachers, etc., who speak to them and who they recognize themselves in. In Latin America, there's a massive decline in Catholicism, and evangelical Christianity is always on the rise, because evangelical Christianity is a people's church. Like, you can become an evangelical pastor right now, just by declaring yourself such. All that it is, like, it's a free church. It's the free church, as it was called back in the day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think also like I guess like the state atheism maybe like because like removing the legality of religion, you would essentially like, because I was reading a proverb yesterday, as like that like knowledge, like to gain knowledge first you must have fear of
Yes, you have
God.
to fear of the Lord. Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's the first step.
essentially like the state as the like if the state and the church are separated, that means like this legality is removed, and they must like this ideal form, and now they must actually fear like their lord as the state. The state's lord would be the people, so they must fear the
Well, that's
people.
what Jesus says anyway, right? Because Jesus says you're going to be judged by how you treated the lowest amongst you, right? Like, you serve God through serving your fellow man, and that's judged by how you treat effectively. Like, who does Jesus say are especially protected classes? You have the poor. So it's like, how are you treating? Like, when you say the fear of the Lord, then is the fear of Christ's judgment upon you for your treatment of the poor.
That's a good point. All right,
That's
thanks,
what it
Logo.
is. Yeah, it's like you're
Yeah.
supposed to be in fear of, like, you have to stand up against the tribunals, and it's like, oh, what did you do? You spent your whole life proliferating this reactionary ideology, which justified like the immiseration of your brothers and sisters. Like, you should fear the Lord. Like, there's a lot of Christians who don't fear the Lord enough. They have to fear the Lord. Communism is just one of the reactions to like, that's one of the ways which we can justify ourselves before God. It's just another tool we use in order to justify ourselves before God. Like, this is how we can overcome our fear of the Lord, is by working as the Lord's stewards on earth and actually, treating the poor with dignity. That's it. That's really it. Like, a society that Jesus would be welcome in, one that would not crucify Christ but would celebrate him. That is a society worth creating. Anyway, you
Yeah.
got anything else, bud?
No, it's just. I think it's nice talking to you. And
Thanks, man.
communism is basically creating heaven on earth.
Literally, yeah, it's the mandate of heaven. It's the rule of heaven, and it's the Lord's prayer, right? On earth as it is in heaven. This our daily bread. All right, I've got SoundCloud country singer. What's up?
What's up, Logo?
What up?
Yeah, I guess first I just want to say I appreciate your presence on the Twitter. It's refreshing when you see all the
Thanks,
you
man.
get a lot of irony and so many levels of jokes and memes and
Yeah,
stuff that
I'm
it's
playing.
nice.
I'm playing I'm playing a different game. I'm playing a much bigger game.
Yeah, no, it's refreshing to see some of that and the Bob Dylan stuff as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess for me, I want to. There's a lot of things that I want to say. I'm going to just try and paint a picture, and then maybe you can just respond to everything that I'm going to say.
Sure.
So I've lived in red states basically my whole life, and I think it's interesting, the MAGA communism idea. I have a brother that recently switched from like a MAGA guy to like a ML, I guess you could say, and which has been interesting to watch. Yeah, because we've lived in like Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho, and kind of all along the West, and so I've kind of been surrounded by MAGA Republican type of people my entire life. But I think the MAGA communism thing's interesting because I'm for it. I'm for bringing in anyone to the fold of these type of beliefs. I think for me, it's kind of, I guess I'm skeptical in some ways, but I do like any effort, right, to bring in anyone to these type of beliefs or ideals. The reason I'm skeptical is because I think that, I guess if you just look at the American population, and like what the needs are of the people and what the goals of like the MAGA people or what like
Debt
MAGA
relief.
beliefs are. Yeah.
That's it.
So yeah, I guess like that guy that came on earlier, that you guys were talking a lot about like the church and religion and stuff like that. I noticed like a pretty like almost libertarian trend of his beliefs. He was concerned.
Well, Marx was a libertarian.
Yeah, he's very concerned about like freedom from the state.
Yeah, negative liberty has been negative liberty. That's like the major hurdle we have to get over. Is this liberal definition of liberty, which actually is opposed to what was the original definition of liberty as normatively understood in the early American colonies. Liberty was Christian liberty, and it referred to a means of flourishing. It meant having a productive and like debt-free society in which things were actually being produced in a positive sense. It was not merely the absence of tyranny; it was the existence of the good.
Right. Yeah, and I think that in my experience, in the places that I've lived, that's, like you said, that's probably one of the main hurdles to get over, because most of my friends and stuff that are all like, right wing people, that's kind of their idea of like what freedom and what liberty is. But I wanted to say that I think that for the majority of people, and maybe the data would say something wrong, that's not really their concern. Most people, I think, want higher wages and want like healthcare and have like a generally liberal view of the world, like socially liberal as well. So I guess for me, it's like I'm all for the, it's like, I guess to add to that is like just the popularity of like Bernie throughout the United States, like obviously super popular politician in the last decade, and even like the popular vote swinging to Democrats. Obviously, there's all sorts of issues with that and whatnot, but. So in all, I guess I'm saying that I think that most people in like the masses have different goals and are concerned with different things than like the MAGA group is. And like I said, I'm all for bringing in anyone to these types
Are
of,
they though,
yeah.
or do they just think that they're concerned with these things because they've been taught that this is what their element of concern should be, right? Like, are people
Right.
actually like why is it that you have like why are people concerned about the environment? Like, if they in their daily lives, like, do they walk around and they're like, oh my God, look at the environment. The
Yes, I think
environment
some
is
do.
suffering.
I think a lot of people do. If you look at like the
Well,
Mississippi
if you
situation and Flint.
for sure, there are definitely parts. But what I'm saying is that, like, across the like everyday lives, don't you think that people's debts are kind of more
Yeah,
immediately pressing
for sure.
concerns?
For sure. But I guess I almost think that like the Bernie type of people, how do you say this? Like, I guess in my interactions and what I hear from the MAGA group is like, it's like those type of concerns aren't voiced. It's not about like our debts, and it's not about like, I think that they're right in terms of like
They're
they're a lot
constantly
more on
talking about
point
the
when it
state
comes
printing
to like,
money and giving it to banks. They're constantly talking about our us being in debt and the debt itself of Americans and the Federal Reserve. You don't hear, the funny thing is, you don't hear these like Bernie people that you're talking about. They're saying that if you start talking about banks, they're going to call you an anti-Semite.
yeah,
Which
totally.
is fucking insane, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
it's a complete, like, it's the most anti-Semitic thing in the world to say that, like,
yeah.
talking about finance is anti-Semitic. It's like insane that that's normative now.
Yeah, there's a lot of like weird contradictions with people. I guess the last thing that I'll say is like, my sense, or like my consciousness that I guess that I have at the moment is that most people most people tend to lean more of like a liberal mindset and a liberal view, and I think that they speak to the needs almost a lot of
I don't
times
think
of
that
like,
if the revolutionary does not look at the polling that Gallup does and say that this is the reality of the situation, we recognize
right.
that everyone exists in a dialectical becoming, and we actually seek to change consciousness through a regime of revolutionary class consciousness building. So what people currently believe is almost irrelevant to us, because our goal is to change what they believe and to change the language that they use to describe themselves and their issues. We want to change consciousness. We do not want to merely co opt existing consciousness. We want to revolutionize the basis of class consciousness as it already exists further. That's what we want to
right.
do.
Right. I guess my concern is that just with people I know, and then obviously there's the whole online MAGA people, but it's like the goals of each group seem very different. Like, I guess just going back to that guy that came on, the
Seem,
libertarian guy, he was
seem,
talking a lot about
seem.
like
The question
seem.
is seems. It seems that way. But if you
Yeah.
go, but if we work through the
Obviously they want
dialectic here,
material benefit.
we will find our common cause, right?
Yeah.
Actually, we have far more in common than not. We have far more that we all want to accomplish than not. And actually, a
Yeah.
lot of these sort of trivial distinctions are the things that actually destroy class consciousness, is focusing on these supposedly opposing things, right? Like, for instance, like something like gay marriage or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
gay marriage being used as an issue to split, or like abortion being used as an issue to split. We want to create a position beyond these these pseudo oppositions. We're trying to create a new
Right.
position, not
Right.
one of the ones that is already proliferated and pulled for. We're trying to build something new.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I appreciate that. And I think you guys, or the whole group of people that are doing that,
I
that
think it's
they're,
just
yeah.
in the ether. I don't take responsibility for it, and I think that if like the specific people who have given voice to it hadn't given voice to it, others would have come to give voice to it, because I think it's just reality. I think
Yeah.
it's like it just is what it is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. All right, on to the next one, man. We got free speech is cool. I agree. Free speech is cool. I'm a fan of free speech.
Um, totally support Maga communism. Even before all of this started online, I just started. Last time I was talking to my Maga grandparents about communism, like with my new view that I've gotten from like infrared and everything, they were they were really interested in it, and they said when I left, they were like,
It's amazing.
I'm gonna read more about this, because I had never heard that definition of communism before. When the conversation started with them being like,
get him some Michael Hudson. Get him some Michael Hudson. Give them and forgive them their debts, and they'll be like, oh my god.
I think that is a little bit higher level for my grandparents.
No. Michael Hudson is extremely readable. Michael Hudson is an extremely like common sense, pragmatic kind of guy. I think he speaks pure, like in a very understandable domain, and he speaks with authority. I think that it's not like as you don't disrespect your grandparents like that. I think that they could read it and they'd get a lot from it.
I guess I'm reading Super Imperialism, and I'm having it's challenging for me. So.
Oh, that one's definitely more of like the harder one. I'm saying and forgive them.
Oh, okay, I haven't opened that one at all yet.
Is like for the general reader. Yeah, that one's.
Well, that's really good to know. Maybe I'll sneak that into their presence at some point.
Oh, are you kidding me? I'm sure your grandparents are big fans of Jesus. Am I wrong about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're telling them that you should be like, oh, look at this. Is this book about Jesus's economic message? Do you think they'd be interested in that? I think they would.
Cool. Yeah, but I did actually have something too that I kind of wanted to debate a little bit. Is the one thing that concerns me is like the approach to immigration and immigrants. Like, I think that's one of the most important things that we need to address with MAGA communism. People that want to build the wall, they want immigrants kicked out, and they don't.
Well, I don't think that's actually. I think that like the way that's taken is there's different levels to that, and there's different ways in which this like quote unquote anti-immigration notion has spread across, because I don't think most people who are articulating this have any problem with legal immigration at all. Their problem is with the anarchy of the borders, allowing for things like criminal cartels to run rampant over the borders and transporting things like, I was watching the local news last night, and they had a bust for like 250 pounds of fentanyl, which is enough fentanyl to kill like 20 million people. So it's like, that's like the real problem. Like that is a real issue. The problem is like when the immigrants themselves are scapegoated for this. And further, you can even say like, well, what's driving people to want to illegally immigrate to America? It's usually a desperation out of the fact that their local states in Latin America in particular are being totally destroyed and run by these criminal cartels. And it's like, why do these cartels exist? It's because of specific policies of the World Bank and the IMF, etc. We actually are very big fans of having organized crime running these societies, because we can tell them what to do, because we're the ones who organize the crime there. So what we want to do is we want to have we want things to be good for everyone, such that we can like have these people. I think that you don't have to force them to leave. I think that if their countries were in a better, stable economic position, that they would rather be with their people than having, like, out of necessity and privation to come to America. Maybe not. Maybe some of them have fully accustomed themselves to America and they consider this their new home. But I think that, like, a lot of what we're talking about when it comes to, like, illegal immigration and this issue are seasonal workers who are coming over to just do work illegally for the benefit of basically nobody, for the benefit of oligarchs. So all of these problems are all tied together. The problem is that people, some cynical grifters, take
Can you hear
this
me?
righteous, they take this righteous opposition to how things are, and they run with it to scapegoat the immigrants themselves when they're not at fault. I'm sorry that you dropped out. I could hear you. You're fine. I was just rambling, I guess. You can get back in the queue if you want, but I'm going to put add Mark's side of the moon here. Mark's side of the moon. What's up?
Hear me?
Yeah. What's up?
All
man?
right. So, I mean, generally speaking, what you're saying here today, to me, as like a big theory nerd, to me, what you're saying is just typical Marxist-Leninist analysis of imperialism. It's typical Leninist analysis of like the mass line. What Mao says about the mass
Maoism.
line is basically what you're proposing. But like my issue with all of this is like from what I've heard anyway, I don't know exactly when this started, but like the whole the tagline of MAGA communism, to me just seems like it's like just like an edgelord attempt to bother other communists.
Yeah, it's supposed to rile people. Yeah.
Not even.
We do want to bother all
But
the communists online because all the communists online are backsliders who are social democrats supporting social fascists, and they're ultimately going to come around to supporting liberals. You have people saying that the Leninist line is to vote for Biden. Of course, we want to piss these people off.
Okay, at least in my experience, the Leninists and the Maoists that I know don't hold to that. As far as the people I know, I'm not saying that's everybody.
Are they going to go talk to the working class in the MAGA movement?
So,
are they open to this, or are they closed off from it? If they're open to it, then we're with them. If they're closed off to it, then we're against them.
I mean, I would agree with that. I agree that we should be, talking to the working class people who vote Republican. And, if you have read anything about the mass line, then you know that is the case. But like the point is the point I guess I'm trying to make is to me, the tagline of MAGA communism and what a lot of you, like your little mecha tanky followers, what they seem to be doing is tailism in the Maoist sense.
What are we tailing?
So like what you're describing to me,
just tell me what we're tailing.
What you're describing to me is just like solid Leninist analysis of the situation, of capital, of the state, whatever. I'm not saying you specifically are tailing anyone.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying like the
you can complain about those people with them. Go complain to them then. If I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm not going to. I'm not taking responsibility.
No, hang on. This is debate MAGA communism. So what I see under that hashtag more often than not is reactionary tailism. That's what I see under the hashtag of MAGA communism. And what I want to ask is like, what is the point? Because like I said, most of the Leninists and Maoists that I see don't go around supporting liberals. Like what I'm asking is what is the point of the MAGA communism tagline? What's the point of that? Really?
To stir the people up. It's to get the people moving. It's to revolutionize people's minds. Because there are people look at how people respond to it. Okay, why is it that the Democratic Party put out on their own website, mind you, in April of this year, that MAGA Republicans and Chinese communists are their unified opposition, that they're opposed to Chinese communists and MAGA Republicans, specifically MAGA Republicans, not Republicans in general, but MAGA Republicans and Chinese communists? Why is the Democratic Party on their own party website saying this?
I mean, I would probably guess your analysis would be that
those people are our people. We're against them. We're MAGA Republicans and Chinese communists at the same time. That's what we're saying. Are we riling people up, or are we taking the terms that have been laid down to us and choosing the side that the lines have already been drawn on?
Yeah, but I mean, like, again, like I everything I've heard you say today makes sense to me. All right, as like I don't like to like label myself, but like typically speaking, I agree with like the Leninist analysis of things. I agree with like Mao Zedong thought, and not as opposed to like the Maoist sects. Like, to me, what you're saying lines up with that. But like, again, I'm just like, the MAGA communism thing, you're not riling up like Republicans. You're riling up like communists because you are intentionally, you're intentionally obfuscating like language that
no, we're not.
established in matters.
We're revealing the reality that's actually true and real on the ground, because as I just told you, the Democratic Party website themselves, the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, they put out themselves in their own publications on their own website, their own official website, that their unified opposition are MAGA Republicans and Chinese communists. So what are we doing other than recognizing the reality that has already been drawn in the lines already drawn in the sand in reality? How are we the ones who are creating that line?
Like,
are we obfuscating or are they obfuscating?
I think I get kind of what you're trying to say here, which is that, like, you know, the Democrats are kind of a unified wing for capital, as opposed, you know, what you said earlier about like
it's
how
not kind of they are. It's not kind of like that. It is that.
Hang on, let me finish my thought here. No, so I'm basically trying to say that I do agree with you about the assessment of like Republican voters as opposed to like Democratic voters. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Who voted against funding
like, the Republican
Ukraine?
voters are harder to control, right? Because they have their own ideas and they have like
so are Republican
libertarianisms. But like, still, I'm just like, you know, again, this hashtag, the MAGA communism thing. What's the point of it? Because like, to me, what you're saying is just like, why not just say like, this is actually what communism is. This is what Leninism is, because that's what that's what you're describing. MAGA communism isn't a new thing or a different thing.
No, it's not. We're not saying it's a new thing.
You're just putting a reactionary label on it to
we're not. It's not
rile up
reactionary.
communists.
No. It's not reactionary. You saying that the label is reactionary is buying into the Democratic Party fucking propaganda, which is that MAGA people are reactionary when they are not. MAGA people are not reactionary at all.
My whole family are right wingers, like they're conservative. I grew up with that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm not buying into the propaganda. I saw what people who supported MAGA, you know, I saw that shit for 4 years, what those people believed. That's absurd to think that I'm buying
what did they believe?
Propaganda to see a bunch of reactionaries say they want to make America great again by kicking out immigrants and blah blah blah. Like that's
that what
not,
they said?
Yes, plenty
legal
of people
immigrants.
said that.
They want to kick out legal immigrants. Is that what they said? They want to kick out legal immigrants to this country. Is that what they said?
I'm sure. Yeah, some of them absolutely did.
Okay, wait, but no, I'm talking about your immediate circumstances. I'm talking about your experience with specific people in your life. I'm not talking about some people who might have. I'm talking about your actual experience. In your actual concrete experience, did these people say that they wanted to kick out legal immigrants?
Not the people I know specifically, but I did.
Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting, isn't it? That in your concrete, actual, real life interactions with these people, that they were not calling for the expulsion of legal immigrants.
My experience,
they were calling for the expulsion of criminals, right? Of people who have illegally immigrated. Now, would you say that it's an absurd thing to say that people who are not legally have not gone through the juridical process of legal citizenship, that these people should not be treated as legal citizens? Is that an absurd reactionary thing to say, or is that common sense?
I mean, I think when you're taking that position from the get-go, I think that's tailism. First of all,
why is that tailism?
Because you're just being like, you
Bernie Sanders said
this kind of reactionary position about.
Do you remember when Bernie Sanders said that open borders was a Koch brothers plot? Do you recall that? Do you remember those days, or was he tailing then? Was that reactionary?
I would say that's reactionary.
And for him to say that open borders is a plot to create a surplus army of labor to lower wages for the working class, that is a tailism.
No, now when you put it that way, that's different. That's my point.
Why is it? Why? Okay, so what you're saying is that you can only determine whether or not something is progressive or radical or revolutionary based off of the specific words used. If it uses revolutionary words, then it's revolutionary. But if it expresses the same thing without that vocabulary, then you can't tell whether or not it's tailing.
Language matters.
That's interesting.
Language matters. The linguistics of philosophy matter.
No. And what matters is the essence of the truth. What doesn't matter is the specific context, the specific form in which that is expressed. The form is completely meaningless without the essence. You could have
No,
someone
so like
explaining the
Jack,
truth in a formally untrue manner. For instance, let's say a fictional story, which was a parable, which told a deep truth, but in its immediate form was fictional. Now, can that disclose truth, or does it have to be written in, as you would say, nonfiction?
I get what you're trying to say here. I mean, like, I get the general idea that you're like the general idea of the MAGA communism thing, where it's like, oh, we don't have to like say what we think in these like antiquated Marxist or like overly whatever academic like Marxist terms or whatever.
We can do
like,
both.
I get
That's
that.
what we do.
I get
We
that,
do
but,
both.
like,
We can jump back and forth. That's our point. Our point is that we can jump back and forth. We can go hardcore on the theory, and we're right on this theoretical level, and we can talk to the people in their own parlance. We can do both. We can train the people to translate their parlance into that, back and forth. That's what we do.
Sure. I mean, again, like, I agree with what you're saying. But like what I see from the MAGA communism hashtag is like shit like Jackson Hinkle when he goes on fucking Fox News and he sits there and goes, communists aren't for open borders. Like at the end of
that's correct. Communists are not for open borders. Communists are not for open borders.
At the end of the fucking rainbow or whatever, right? After the global communist revolution,
after open borders ever.
Every
we don't
state
want open
has
borders.
had a socialist revolution and we're working towards communism. At the end of that
sci-fi
rainbow.
Now you're talking sci-fi. We're talking about reality as it is
appears
to us right now. Right now, do you want open borders? Do you support open borders right now?
No.
Do you support open borders right now? Do you support open borders right now?
I support like the right of.
Okay, so you don't. So are you tailing?
Hang on.
Are you tailing? Are you tailing? Answer the question.
So
you're not tailing, and you do not support open borders. Okay, cool. So we're in perfect agreement then. What's your problem?
My problem is specifically like, okay, so you sit there and you say, oh, open borders are, a
open borders, correct?
Right?
We just established that you are not in favor of open borders. We just established that.
Let me finish my thought, and then you can maybe.
No, I'm
in
charge here. Look, I can do this too. I can mute you if I feel like it because I'm in charge here. I have authority here. I'm an authoritarian, and you will respect my authority here because I'm the authoritative voice here. You're here at my fucking convenience, pal. All right. So let me tell you that what just happened is that you agree entirely with what we are saying. You do not believe in open borders as it is termed and what it means in this material, concrete circumstance that we both find ourselves in this shared reality, which we could call the state of things as they are right now. You do not support open borders, neither do we. When we give voice to that, you say we're being tailless because we don't use the exact verbiage that you would prefer. Who is reactionary then? Who's tailing? You're tailing the Democrats. You're tailing these leftists. You say that we have to accommodate all of our verbiage to be academically correct and to be fashionable amongst the intelligentsia. And we say, fuck that. We can give voice to the common sense and say that all of these people who are saying all of this shit are not tailless and not reactionaries. They are the ones giving voice to the truth, and you are the one tailing the Democratic Party and academic trends. That's what tailism actually means.
Okay, but like I'm not tailing the Democrat Party.
We just established that you are. We just established that you are. That's what we established.
You haven't established that. You're just like turning it around. No, you have.
Yes, we did. We showed that your opposition in calling MAGA people tailists and calling us tailists is actually projection on your part because you're tailing the Democrats. That's what we've established dialectically here in this engagement. You can deny it. You can deny it, but everyone else.
I mean, isn't that what you're doing as well? I mean,
no.
To me,
no, I'm not.
Like you haven't.
I'm defending MAGA communism.
You haven't even let me
finish
my thought. So like,
I have let you finish your thought.
Okay, so like, I again, like, there's a way to say.
No,
that you
talking about fashion already. You're already saying, oh, there's a decorum.
There's a way. It's not about decorum.
Things.
It's about literally like phrasing things in a reactionary way or not. Like it's not about.
Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're fucking saying right now. Phrasing things in a reactionary way. So you're saying specific word choices can be reactionary. Now you're just talking about social. You're talking about thought policing. You're literally just saying, oh no, you have to be politically correct. You have to be politically correct in your verbiage. You have to be politically correct in your verbiage,
Have
man.
you
You have to be
read
politically
Lacerda's
correct in your
War and
verbiage.
Revolution?
You have to be politically correct in your verbiage, man. You have to be politically correct in your verbiage. You have to be politically correct in your diction. You're using reactionary language.
Dude, I
Are
don't
you
give a
kidding
shit
me?
about political correctness.
You
Have you
just
read
you
Lacerda's War
clearly
and
do.
Revolution or
You
not?
clearly do. I don't give a fuck, dude. You clearly do care about political correctness. You're literally calling language reactionary. You're saying that when people say that they're opposed to open borders, you think they're reactionary until they jump through your little hoops of theoretical diction. That's
Yeah,
what
because
you're saying.
open borders can mean
No,
a
no,
lot
no.
of things to a
Everyone
lot of
sees
different
what I
people.
see. Everyone sees what I see. Everyone sees what I see.
What are you
You
saying?
are the one who's lost. You don't see it. You need to humble yourself.
I'm asking you a question. Have you read Lacerda's War and Revolution?
No.
Okay, so the whole point of that book.
Why should I?
What's actually a very interesting book.
Why do I need to? Why don't you tell me why I need to?
Well, I'm trying to, but you keep interrupting me. Okay, so the point of the book is basically that, you know, like what you've said earlier to that the Christian fella who was speaking, what you've said to him and a few other people is that, you know, basically the working class has been psyoped against communism, right?
Yes.
Yes. I agree with that. The book is basically about that, but the book goes into great detail about the specific language of liberalism and how liberalism
so it's about neurolinguistic programming and about how these specific words, the FNORDs, et cetera, yeah, we can get really into Gen X bullshit like that about how we need to like invent our own new language. How about what we're going to do?
Lacerda was a guy who wrote a book defending Stalin. Like, I don't think he's like a Gen
That's
X,
great.
like,
That's great. But guess what? I'm here right now, and I'm also defending Stalin. But what I'm doing is I'm taking all of these words for the people, and I am rectifying the definitions of them, and I'm holding firm to that. And I will not tail the academic fashions and trends that tell me that I cannot call MAGA people communists, because they are, and I am doing that.
All right, well, check the book out. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I don't think
what
you're saying.
Frankly, I doubt that I will, because I don't really need to read theory. I already have an understanding. I grasp my understanding. I don't need to read theory.
What kind of Marxist says that they don't need to read any more theory? That's kind of silly to me.
But I feel like Marx and Engels all the time were saying how they were sick of reading all of these other socialist theorists. They mostly spent their time making fun of them, which is what I do. So I don't know.
All right. Well, anyway, like, listen, I genuinely think that you would get something out of Lacerda's War and Revolution.
Maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't.
I mean, I think you would agree with the whole fucking book. Like, we are in agreement that, like, the working class has been psyoped against communism. And a lot of that has to do with the language, the specific language.
More pressing? Well, we're fixing that language here. So more pressing here. Do you support open borders?
You know, what do you mean by that?
When a politician goes on screen and says, I am in favor of open borders, what does he mean by that?
I mean, it depends. The point I'm trying to make is that
does it depend?
That sentiment is vague.
Doesn't it? No, it does. It's not that vague. It's a real thing that people are going up and saying that they support. What do they mean by it?
Like, okay, so like, as far as the like anarchist concept of just like, well, we should just like erase all borders tomorrow. Like, of course, that's an absurdity. All right, and like most.
So you don't support
liberal Democrats who believe in that idea, are absurd. But like, I'm saying,
support
the concept of open borders is open to interpretation, and MAGA communism is taking the reactionary interpretation.
You've spent too much time in college and not enough time.
I literally have not gone to college, dude. I've been working class my whole life. Like, I've never.
So then, why are you using this verbiage? Why are you talking in this affected manner, where it's like, well, anything can mean anything, you know? Well, it's like, well, when I say
because I've read, and this is what I've learned, dude. Like,
but we also know that there's a common sense. There's a common sense. There is a common sense. There is a common sense understanding as to what open borders is, and you recognize what that is, such that if a politician came out and said that they were in favor of open borders in this concrete material circumstance that you and I share, that we could call the state of things as they actually are, would you support that statement? If I said I'm in favor of open borders, would you be opposed or for that?
I would oppose it, but the point is,
okay,
like,
good.
You have to
so
add
we're in
context.
Agreement. So we are
you have
in
to add
agreement,
context,
then, right? We are in agreement, then, correct?
You have to add context to what that means. You have to put in the Leninist analysis of what that means. And if you don't include that,
we can add context, but we can establish as a baseline that we're opposed to what is called open borders in this material circumstance that we find ourselves in right now. The commonsensical understanding of what open borders is something that we both oppose, correct?
More or less.
Okay, yes. So we do agree. Cool. So what has your argument been about this entire time if we fundamentally agree on the essence of what is said there? What has been your disagreement? Has it been perhaps with the form in which this essence is disclosed?
I think without the added context of a Leninist analysis of imperialism, capitalism, I think without that added context,
I've been providing that.
When you're sitting there telling MAGA Republicans about communism and why it's actually good, I think if you're going to sit there and say I'm against open borders and not clarify what that means in a Leninist sense, then it's reactionary. And yes, it's tailist.
Why would you need to clarify something that they already
because
understand?
when they hear I'm against
opposed
open borders, they think one thing.
Do you realize?
Listen,
man. Do you understand what the mass line means? The mass line means that these people already have an understanding and they already know, right? So if why would I just start talking about Lenin? Why bother bringing that up when they already understand what I'm saying and they agree with me?
So
why do I need to alienate them by being like, now I'm going to teach you from my ivory tower about this guy named Lenin? Why do I even have to do that?
It doesn't have to be a teaching you from an ivory tower situation. It feels like what you're saying right now itself is like tailism.
If they ask me a follow-up question, the same way that you would, that I would continue to disclose that for them. But on a base level, if I say, are you in favor of open borders? And they say no, and I say, I'm not either. What am I doing wrong?
I mean, again, like, I think on a direct...
Isn't that just building
on a direct, like, person-to-person basis, yeah, again, I would agree with you. But, like, if you have, like, someone like Jackson Hinkle going on Fox News and being like, communists don't believe in environmentalism...
Again, I am not Jackson Hinkle, so you're coming after me for complaints for this guy over here.
You set up this chat to debate MAGA communism, and if we can't debate the people who are proposing MAGA communism, then
I'm
what's
proposing
the point?
it right here, right now. So you can
what
debate
you're proposing
me.
is like typical Leninist and Mao Zedong thought levels of Marxism. That's it. That's all you're proposing.
I know that's what I'm doing. So why are you coming at me with your resentment towards Jackson Hinkle? I'd have nothing to like. I met him once.
Because he embraces MAGA communism as a tagline.
Good. What's wrong with that?
The whole point of what I'm saying, you're sitting here
as possible to embrace
Jackson
that.
Hinkle.
I
so
want
why
as
are you
many
asking
people as possible.
I
want many. Yeah, exactly. I want as many people as possible to embrace that. I want everyone to be calling
MAGA communism. That's what I'm here doing. Okay, what I hear from you
is Jackson Hinkle the same thing as MAGA communism?
Like, he embraces the tagline.
So do a lot of people.
Plenty of reactionary and tailists have embraced MAGA communism.
Internally, you're saying we need to do more gatekeeping. We need to do more gatekeeping. I need to discipline Jackson Hinkle. You're telling me that I should go shake a stick at Jackson Hinkle and tell him that he needs to bring up Lenin more. Is that what your complaint to me is?
He doesn't need to bring up Lenin. He doesn't need to bring up Lenin. He just needs to couch the idea of no open borders.
I'm going to be honest with you. It sounds to me that you have a type of resentment against this particular person for, I don't know what reason.
He's just one example.
It's so overwhelming to you that you were bringing this resentment to me for no reason. You have no reason to tell me
He's but one example.
I don't care.
He's one example, and your audio chat room is called Debate MAGA Communism. It's not.
That's
debate
right. Now we've already established, right, that Jackson Hinkle and MAGA communism are not the same thing, right? He's just one person who's embraced this label amongst many others.
Yeah, and he's an outspoken proponent of the idea, right? So why shouldn't we be talking about what he's saying?
Because I think I'm personally more important to it than he is. Frankly, I've been on this beat for a lot longer, and I think that he's he's a great popularizer, but he's not exactly created the ground for this theoretically. I would say I've done more of that than he.
Yeah, and I agree.
He's much better at doing what he does. He does something that I can't do, which is I'm not the kind of person who wants to have that type of audience and doing a news show, etc., and doing all of these sorts of media things. And he's a very photogenic, sort of personable person that is aesthetically better as a representative than me, I guess. Like neither do I want to have that role. I like doing what I'm doing. So I have no real problem with him. It seems like you have a problem with him, but that's irrelevant to me.
I don't have a problem specifically with Jackson Hingle. I still have a problem with the tagline of MAGA communism, and I don't think it's.
What's your problem with
it? Does anything but like rile up communists for no reason and like confuse language.
Shouldn't they be? I think it's actually clarifying language. See, this is what our fundamental disagreement is that I think MAGA communism is bringing clarification to reality, whereas you think that it is bringing confusion. So what should we do instead, sir?
Well, let me ask you, I will do a counter question, which is, why is MAGA communism a clarification? Why is that a clarification? Why is that?
Because the Democratic Party has identified MAGA Republicans and Chinese communists as their unified opposition.
That's the only reason?
No, that's just one example for this line.
That's not a very, to me, that's not a very good clarification.
That line's already been drawn.
Democrats hate the CPC and MAGA heads.
So let me put it this way. The party of oligarchic capital have defined their opposition to both MAGA republicanism and Xi Jinping. Now, why is that the case? That's the case because of a deeper, like, material economic reasons why they are defining those people as their enemies. Now, what are we doing? We are recognizing the enemies of this power that we oppose as being a unified opposition. So we are saying MAGA and communists are on the same team. We're actually disclosing a truth and revealing and clarifying reality as opposed to bringing confusion. What's confusion is to say that this is all that MAGA communism, the idea that MAGA represents a productive or a positive force in the world, is propaganda. And you are saying that they are reactionaries and that we are tailing reactionaries, whereas we are saying that they are more communist than your supposed communist friends.
Yeah, I don't know about the very last bit you just said, but overall, I would once again just say, yeah, what you just said makes sense. I mean, that's basically,
so we're in agreement.
Basically that's what I was looking for. So I will concede my time from here.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I got no one in the queue right now, but we got Night Soil. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna change out my dual pod here. All right, Night Soil. What up?
Oh, hey. How's it going? Hello?
Pretty good, man.
Oh, okay. Cool. Okay, so I guess I'll jump right in to just some thoughts I've been having. I guess one thing is like, you said something early on where you said, Democrats, Republicans, whatever, a lot of times it's people are split over like sort of proclivities, right? Over certain like cultural things where their economic
over fashion,
where their class interests can align, right? But like also like then it's only two parties, so it's like, we're not like vulgar Marxists, right? So we have to take into account like, petty bourgeois elements and like also the sort of contradictions and tendencies like within this. So it's like, if I see MAGA communism, I guess, as a sort of slogan, I'm thinking of in line with some comments like Dimitrov made about like, ways to approach like the fascist mass base and how this mass base is in a certain sense, duped, right? That fascism exploits the, discontent of the masses against capitalism.
And it essentializes it. What it does is it takes away the political economy and substitutes it with a type of naive race biology and spiritual anarchy, where they say fundamentally it's not capital that exists, it's the Jews or whatever. And people do this all the time. Like there's people who get mad at me and they say like, no, silly, it's not the oligarchs. The oligarchs are actually based in red pill. The problem is black people or whatever. That's really what they do is they try to scapegoat one element of the working class for like targeting like to be the acceptable target for where like the people who are actually at fault are the rich.
Yeah, true. And also, but also in a sense, it's not like it's not like a entirely right because of that. It's not entirely like a working class like movement in a sense, right?
No, it's when it's like these are like the corporate this is like when you have
Yeah.
like massive landlord who's like, hey, workers, actually we both agree that we don't want Jews in my country club or whatever.
Well, like the
That's
aristocratic, like the old aristocratic sort of like
yeah,
feudal.
the old money.
Yeah, in Germany we see this, right? We
see it in America too.
Yeah, totally. But like I guess the sort of point is that like then it's to make. I think you have to make differentiations within like this mass base, right? To where like some can be some like the gentleman you were talking to earlier about Christianity, and they're really like just totally pumped up with the anti-communist ideology a lot of times still, even if their values align a lot of times. So it's like peeling them away. Dimitrov talks about this as well, as far as like infiltrating and fascist organizations and peeling people away from it. I think this is important, but like you have to make distinctions like within that, and you also have to unite on the other side. You have to distinguish between the social democratic masses and social democratic unions and the social democratic leaders, right? Like you,
the
so
social fascists.
yeah,
Yes.
totally. But like it's like it's in a sense that there's two. It's a specific. If I see it as a slogan, I can see it as emerging in a particular time, right? A particular context where it would be doing where if held in its proper place, maybe it's as Lukács says, to see every slogan in as its in its internal contradiction as part of a larger dialectic of the growing revolution. So it's like,
That's great. I'm going to read you a tweet that I just read right now, right? This is Noah Kratchvik, and he wrote this. I believe him entirely because I do this all the time. Some people in the quote tweets are saying that he's making this up, but I do this all the time. Said, just spent about a half hour talking to a guy with a Trump sign in his yard. Before he left, his last statement was, quote, look, if the communists are really for what you say, and they want the American working class in charge, then maybe the media was lying about them too, That's it. That's what we're doing.
oh yeah, and in a funny way, especially when it's like, yo, you guys believe like Hillary Clinton's like eating babies, like in that this is all like a big psyop, like, man, maybe like they lied to you about communism.
Yeah.
But it's in the sense of mobilizing this sort of like, the conspiracy of, the Jewish bankers or something, right? Like these highly fetishized sort of forms of
I don't think that's really,
misrecognition.
I don't think that like, so that whole idea of like all of this being like tropes about Jews or whatever, this is a far more academic thing than it is amongst like people normatively. People normatively think of bankers as bankers, as like they're not like saying like, oh, there's a banking race. And like we're opposed to the race of bankers. They're talking about the people who go and work at banks. They're
Yeah,
talking about the
that's not really
Federal Reserve. I
my
don't think
point.
that
You know what I mean?
to ascribe a type of like anti-Semitism to saying like I think we need to eliminate the big bankers or the bankers are the vampires on the wealth of the working people, etc. I don't think this is anti-Semitic where it's even dangerous to say. I
I'm
think it's
not
just
saying
true.
I'm not saying that, right? That's not really what I'm saying at all. Is to fetishize a form of capital, but not capital, but just finance as the
Finance is the
issue.
problem.
Huh? Finance is
Finance
absolutely
is
a
the
problem.
problem. No, it is the problem. The problem is not the capitalists. the problem
the
today
capitalist, it's capital.
is the banks.
Yeah, it's capital. It's not
What
the
is
like.
capital? What is capital in its material? Like how? What do you, when you say capital? What do you mean? Do you just mean the idea of capital, or do you mean specific?
I mean the social relation Marx
networks?
talks about in capital. I mean,
okay, sure, but what I'm talking about is today in our concrete material reality that we both share. What represents capital? Like where is capital represented? The interests of capital are
well,
represented
this
in
is
what
this is the
institution?
sort of point, as Marx says, the most highly fetishized, highest fetish form of capital is finance capital, right? M to M prime.
You're right. You're right. So when we talk about finance, are we talking about capital? Yes. Are we
Yes.
talking? And we're also talking about the reigning form of capital, right?
Yes, but the problem is when you don't have that analysis, right? But you have the analysis, it's because they're freaking greedy Jews.
Okay, but
that's why they control the banks. That's the problem, right?
Do you hear that from normal MAGA people, or do you see that from internet accounts that exist online? When you go and talk to the person with the Trump sign
I'm not
in his
saying
yard,
I see it in MAGA
is that
people.
what
I'm
he's
not
going
saying,
to say?
I feel like this is, I feel like you're turning this into a sort of antagonistic thing where I haven't really got my
want it to be
point out, if
antagonistic.
that makes sense.
Well, I like being antagonistic. I think it's better than just being like, oh, we both agree. I would like to see where we disagree.
I want to see where we disagree too.
More.
I want to see where we disagree too, but I think to do that we have to have a little bit of
I'm asking you a basic question. I'm asking you a basic question, which is if you talk to a normal MAGA supporter, if you went to talk to them, a normal dude, not a guy who's like hyper online and like, you know, wearing like with like a fucking honestly all of the
honestly, if I talk to a normal MAGA person,
anyway.
I do the same shit you did, just with the other dude. I just sort of couch communism in terms that are like more akin to just like how they would normally speak and how they would normally think of things. You know, it's not perfect or anything. It's not like the freaking like, you know, highest echelons of like you know, scientific like state form derivation or some bullshit like this, right? It's just trying to, because I know that they have a fucked up version of communism, and to set it a little bit in terms where it's like, oh, actually like a one party state isn't like you just are like, you know, totally exploited by like this bureaucracy, right? But it's actually to even go, everyone hates bureaucracy, right? Bureaucracy is a great entry point. You can be like, yeah, actually capital engenders bureaucracies, right?
Finance capital specifically, yeah.
Yeah, totally, especially, yeah, right? Because it's like, as it's just sort of like you have to continue to like multiply these sort of like you know, ways of realizing value.
It's not even that anymore. It's not even realizing value. It's just extracting rents. That's the thing is you got to read volume 3 of Capital, because we've actually regressed to a form of bastard feudalism. We don't even have capitalism anymore. So when these people are saying that they're not socialist, but they prefer capitalism, they're actually representing a positive forward step in the development of the means of production, because we've regressed from capitalism to a form of like neo-feudal oligarchy. That's why the finance capital is the main issue, because finance capital doesn't produce anything valuable. It only circulates capital that's already in existence, and it does so by extracting more rents. It doesn't produce more value.
Yeah,
all of our economic
but that's
metrics.
you know,
let me finish.
we're talking about the like the imperial.
I'm not done. You got to remember that I'm the authority here. So when I'm talking, I feel like talking, and I'll be done when I'm done. The problem is that all of the economic metrics that we have measure these things, this fictive capital that is ostensibly being built by finance, but is actually an illusion of rent. This counts as GDP. When your health insurance charges more, when your landlord charges more, that is counted as an increase in the gross domestic product of America. That is the issue. Do you agree?
Okay. Like, it's kind of funny how like you know, you're completely hostile, and it's like we're getting nowhere.
No, I asked you a question. Do you agree that when you're talking about capital extracting value, what we're really talking about today is finance extracting rents. Isn't that different?
I don't think we're talking about that on a world scale. On a world scale, no.
Really? What's the IMF and the World Bank doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important, but there's still the productive value.
Are they producing?
There's still the production
anything?
of value through in exploitation through wage labor.
Okay, but is that where the majority of the gross domestic product of America comes from? Does it
No.
come from the production of goods? No, it doesn't. So what does it come from? It comes from the extraction of rents, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so are capitalists opposed to rents?
No.
Capitalism is not opposed to rents? Whoa. I mean, I guess you're disagreeing with Marx there. You're disagreeing with Adam Smith. You're disagreeing with the basis of classical political economy, which is that capitalists wanted to eliminate rents.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I haven't read volume 3, so this is really interesting analysis. I'm totally
read Michael Hudson.
think it's an important. I'm on the side of the primary contradiction of the world is imperialism.
Read
and that not a lot of value is produced in the U.S.
Read Super Imperialism by Michael Hudson. Michael Hudson is the only
Michael Hudson's good. I haven't read that book, but I watched a lecture on it.
He's the only worthwhile communist theorist in the Anglophone world. He is so good that he's not allowed to teach in the Anglophone world, but he is now teaching Communist Party apparatchiks in China all the time because they actually give a fuck about what he has to say, because he's the most interesting Marxist theorist alive today, and he's actively producing revolutionary consciousness in China because he's been kicked out of all of the institutions in the Anglophone world. He's the person that I would point you to if you want an even more solid theoretical basis for everything that I'm saying. It's all orthodox Marxism.
Yeah, I'm not denying this, and it's kind of, I don't know how, in a way, I started talking about, I was just trying to talk about fascism. That's
yeah,
it.
Sure, but who are the fascists? The fascists are Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a fascist.
Yeah, totally.
So who are the real fascists?
The fascists who fight for power are not the same fascists who are in power.
Okay, so do you think that
there's
Joe
a difference
Biden
between the fascist mass base and the fascist? There's a fascist dialectic and drift.
Do you think the average MAGA supporter is as much of a fascist, in your parlance here, as Joe Biden?
I mean, I guess it's not really about the individual's beliefs so much as it is about what they objectively do. Right.
Okay, so are they fat? So they're objectively doing the same thing, in your opinion?
I kind of think no one. I don't I think it's really interesting, especially in America, because a lot of the MAGA people, it's they're not yes, we love fucking Mussolini or some shit.
No,
but there is
a
faction of them that are totally, I saw a picture of the Proud Boys the other day, and this guy had a shirt that said Pinochet did nothing wrong.
Where did the Proud Boys come from?
Funny.
Where did the Proud Boys come from? They're anarchists, right? Totally.
Gavin
McInnes guy?
Anarchists are basically the anarchists. That's the thing. Anarchists are they're oh my god, we're gonna smash the state and forget about capital, and they just make way for fascism.
They are fascists. It's the same thing. So Gavin McInnes, do you think that he actually represents the normative MAGA person, or is he kind of a grifter?
No, they're grifters, but this is the thing.
Okay, cool.
Right?
So the Proud Boys are like that in the same sense. Do you think the Proud Boys accurately represent the average normal MAGA person, or are they kind of adventurous interlopers who give a bad name to these people who should not be associated with them?
Yeah, I think they suck. I think they suck, and I think a lot of people were fooled by this.
Do you know what a lot of MAGA people call them? A lot of MAGA people say that the Proud Boys are all feds. Do you think that they're right? I think they're right to say so.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely right.
Okay, so we agree. The Proud Boys, this Boogaloo stuff, the stuff that the CNN, etc., are trying to define the MAGA movement by, are actually feds, and they're saboteurs, and they're actually anarchists, and they're not authentically MAGA people. I think that's the case.
Well, I would say they are authentically MAGA people, and that
I don't
fools.
Think so. I think
and
they're
this
cynically.
whole thing
I think
fools the rest of MAGA is snake oil. I think MAGA is snake oil.
You think the power, like the people themselves are like, I mean, you could
I
say
think
that they were
I think
sold.
they're being lied to, and they're being
Well,
fucked
everyone's being
around.
lied to. Everyone's being lied to, right? Who isn't being lied to and fucked around with? Everyone, right?
Well,
So
that's
what we're
our
doing
job is
is
to
we're
not lie
saying
to the people. Our job is to
we're
fucking
not.
tell the people the
Am I?
truth,
What am I
right?
doing? Have I lied to the people?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think. In a way, I think that there's some ambiguities around this slogan, MAGA communism, where people can attach, like the person talking to you. Yeah, you're well within your right to say, like, yeah, well, I'm not, like, whatever the people say under MAGA communism is not what I'm saying. So, like, fuck that, right? You're fine. You can say that, but like, I think there's some we should unite with the advanced and bring up the intermediate and win over the backwards. And I think
That's what I'm
in
trying to do.
appealing to some
I don't
MAGA,
know.
sometimes you're winning people over to some communism where they think communism is when everyone's
Well,
enslaved.
what I also want to do is I want to win over communists to MAGA. That's what I also want to do. I want to do both at the same time because I think a lot of these communists are actually bigoted people. I think a lot of these communists actually don't have any love or class consciousness in their hearts for these people. I think that they view communism as their own little fiefdom where they get to imagine their dreams of resentment and vengeance
Well,
against
what about
the actual
MAG? I'll
working
go
class
for
people.
MAG, but I won't go for the MAGA.
You don't think America's ever been great?
No, maybe before the Europeans got here.
1770, before the Europeans got here. Oh my God! So the Dominion of New England, who fought against the king in the English Civil War and established their own mint in America, their own independence, and created the body of liberties upon which the Constitution is based. The body of liberties, which was held in the Charter Oak. This was not a great act of revolution. I mean, Lenin and Marx would disagree with you. Would you say
I
that
don't.
Abraham Lincoln freeing the slaves, fighting the slave power and oligarchy of the southern plantations, was that not a greatness in American history? Was America great then or no?
Uh, not really. I mean, I think
What's
it
great?
depends on
Where
what
is
you want.
great? What
Like,
what
has there
when
been
has there
great
ever
things in
been
America?
greatness?
Yeah, there's been
Has there ever been?
great movements. Was the, like, Communist Party, like,
So let's
great
make
at one
America
point?
great
Yeah.
again like that. Let's make
We're like,
America
was
great
like
again like that.
the
Let's
huh?
make America great again like that then. Let's make America great like that. That's what it means. It doesn't
Okay,
mean
make
what you
America
think it means.
let's make America great, like, like
Like
MLK and
Abraham
Malcolm
Lincoln.
X and shit.
Yes, it's absolutely. Make America great again, like Abraham Lincoln, Malcolm X, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton. Let's make America great again like that. That's what we mean.
Well, I think we have to, I mean, I think this is where, like, the disagreement starts to come in around some of these figures.
How do you feel about Abraham Lincoln? Do you think Abraham Lincoln was great?
I think Abraham Lincoln was pretty good. I'd say pretty good. Say
So
good.
why not great? He
Maybe
died
great.
for this country. He was assassinated by the oligarchs for what he did.
Well, I think Abraham Lincoln was a good force. I don't know. Like,
Just good. I think he was great. I
he was great.
personally,
Sure. Fuck it. I
I
don't
believe
care.
in the greatness of Abraham Lincoln, the bigness of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think there's some things to be said, but we got to be careful to not, like, what do you think? I mean,
Do we
this
have to be
does remind
careful
me
to
of
say that? Do we have to be careful when we say if I said
let's take an example
let's
from
make
socialist
America great
history of
again
one of
like
these
Abraham
figures.
Lincoln? If I
What
said
about
let's
Hyrule?
make America great again like Abraham Lincoln, would you disagree with me?
Yeah, I would. I think we should
Why?
make it, like, great, like fucking revolutionary socialism.
Okay, like Abraham Lincoln, the
I think we
single-minded
should make
son
it
of the
great
working
in a
class,
new
as
way.
Karl
I think
Marx
we should
called
make
him.
it great in a new way. I think we should make it
Yeah, but
great in a way that it's never been great before.
Well, but in ways that are inspired by the ways that it has all of the greatness that it has ever accomplished, we want to preserve and extend, do we not? Or do we want to burn it all down and start from a blank slate?
No, well, I think some of these things are highly contradictory, and there's great aspects, and there's, opportunist, shithead, chauvinist aspects.
Do you think I'm an
These figures
opportunist,
can,
shithead, chauvinist?
huh?
Do you think I'm an opportunist, shithead, chauvinist?
No, I don't mean you. I mean, on some of these historical
Okay, but
figures,
we're talking. You're
we have
talking
to
to
be
me,
able to
right?
draw lines and be critical.
Okay, what do we have to be critical about Abraham Lincoln for?
that's not the point is that not all of it can just be blanketed as great all around and has to be seen
Did I
in
say
its
that?
historical
No,
context.
we're actually saying that America has lost a lot of what made it great, right? We're saying that like this tradition of like preserving our liberties against like, you know, the things like the Federal Reserve, oligarchic power, the slave power, as it was called in the 19th century. I think that a lot of our opposition to that has actually waned. I think that what we need to do is to make America great again by drawing upon that revolutionary heritage that we have and reviving it, bringing about a rebirth of the revolutionary American spirit. Would you agree?
Yeah, but this is also
Cool.
extends into the 20th century, right? Like,
yeah, we want to make America great again, like Fred Hampton, like Malcolm X, and those like patriotic American revolutionaries, like them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
So
we're in
if we
agreement.
can connect that to, you know, if we can connect those two sides of, you know, our revolutionary heritage consistently, which like I'm not personally like have, you know, I know there's debates over the how revolutionary the American Revolution really was, you know.
What do you think? Do you agree with Moldbug that and the 1914 or the what is it, the 1614 project or whatever the fuck that thing is, that the American Revolutionary was actually a reactionary anti-tax revolt of landlords? Or do you believe that the American Revolution was authentically revolutionary?
I don't know where I stand yet, honestly. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying like we have to work through this. Like I'm not personally, I don't know where I stand yet on that.
You
Like,
don't know as an American whether or not the American Revolution was good.
well, I think it was contradictory. It's like a bourgeois
Isn't
revolution.
everything okay? Yeah, but isn't the bourgeois revolution necessary, like a step to fight the power of the ancien regime?
Yeah, but like take like the, you know, the French Revolution too, right? Like Robespierre was like super fucking radical, but like he got
Yeah,
like murked by
yeah,
like the people who were like really like, you know, in the interest of like the rising bourgeoisie. Like Robespierre was like for the people and shit. They were like
yeah. So I
Red
mean,
Terror.
Luther did the same thing. You know, it's like history's complicated, right? Where you have people who represent like a revolutionary moment and that actually afford more revolution in the future, like that they're important figures, but that they didn't necessarily go all of the way, right? Like, so we can have like you, as you say, a complicated relationship with these things, but what we should primarily do is emphasize the good as opposed
Yeah,
to
we
the
should pick out the
critical,
most
right?
revolutionary, most based like shit.
Yeah, I agree. Like
So
Abraham Lincoln.
cool. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I feel like we mostly agree. I don't.
Well,
I don't
the
know
thing
what's going
is I
on.
think we need to be with the my, I guess my, you know, sort of like outreach to the MAGA communism would be, you know, don't like fucking like try to unite with the other communists who are not
They hate us. Because they
oriented
hate MAGA people.
towards this type of
They can
mass
join
work
us.
and mass
How
base.
about they join us? How about they join us? Like, why do I have to go get their acceptance? Like, shouldn't they already accept everything I'm saying?
Well,
You
because you know
agree that
the
I'm
MAGA
just laying out the
communist
orthodox position
isn't
here.
necessarily trying you know, the MAGA communists need to align with the communists who may be
Other way
more
around.
working towards polling the social democratic masses towards
Maybe they're wrongheaded.
communism.
Maybe they're the ones who are tailing and we're the ones who are revolutionary and they should get on board with our program.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying. If it's a slogan for a specific type of mass work, I think I think it makes sense. If it's a program and ideology or something, I think it's a
Who do
little
you think
bit.
we should? Who do you think, as communists, we should go for? Should we go for the MAGA truckers, or should we go for social science majors?
I think we should go for the fucking like Amazon workers and the the factory workers. I think we should go
Okay,
for
yeah.
like
Well, there's a lot of Amazon truck
the
drivers that I know of.
proletarian youth and the even the fucking subway baristas.
The subway baristas. Okay. Do you think we need baristas or truck drivers?
We need both.
Who is more important?
We need both.
Who's more important?
The truck drivers,
Okay,
obviously.
that's easy. Okay, so then we should probably get them before we get the baristas. Maybe the
Well, we need,
baristas
but
should line up
logistics
behind the truck drivers.
is like crucial. Like right now,
Okay, right.
the railroad
So
workers
do you think
are.
the truck drivers should line up behind the baristas, or the baristas should line up behind the truck drivers?
I think they should unite together.
Okay, but they're not the same thing. They don't produce the same type of work, and they're not the same class. So what I'm asking you is whose interests should be lined up against? Who should we emphasize? If it was a question as to whether or not we were splitting resources between the pay of baristas and the pay of truck drivers, who would you advocate get the pay?
Well, I mean, I think we should, I don't know why we need baristas.
Because we
honestly.
don't need baristas, right? We don't need them at all, right?
Yeah, that's the sort of point.
But we do need truck drivers, right?
Yeah, but the other point
then
is,
you agree with me that focusing on baristas at the expense of truck drivers, or thinking that the truck drivers should get behind the baristas and not the other way around, is actually tailism and reactionary, correct?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. So we're in perfect agreement. The truck drivers are more important than the baristas, and they're more constitutive of what a future Communist Party will represent as interests than the baristas. For the same reason that we want to go for the working class and not for the intellectuals, correct?
I would not necessarily put it like that. I think we have to see their sort of like particularities, how they fit into, the motive, how they fit into the process of like circulation and production, right? Like, so for like one thing with like the truck drivers, or at least this MAGA truck driver thing, is that like, what was their sort of like demands? Like what ended up happening with this thing? They like drove across the country to like drive around the Beltway one time. Like there isn't really an economic demand behind this. There isn't like
their demand. They're saying that they're opposed to the policies of bailing out all of these banks, and these banks are the ones that are extracting rents from their means of production, i.e., like the trucks that they're leasing from banks. Correct?
Were they? I mean, I didn't see that. So maybe this is some knowledge of the trucker.
That's the reality.
To me,
of the situation,
it seemed
right? You know what?
It seemed quite reactionary.
Is to be a truck driver? Oh, it seemed quite reactionary to you, because it was mediated by what?
Because it was mediated by like a reactionary ideology.
Yeah,
like, because
the
Democrats. Huh?
Yeah, it was mediated to you by Democrats, the reactionaries and fascists of this nation, were the ones telling you what the truckers wanted, right? And they said that the truckers were reactionary. Do you think maybe that they were lying to you?
They're like worshiping like Trump and shit, man. They're like worshiping oligarchs.
Why wouldn't they? Is Trump just like all the other oligarchs, or did Trump make an enemy amongst the oligarchs? Was he beloved by the other oligarchs, or no?
Okay, the brothers fight. Like, it's not
okay, sure, but
this isn't a new thing.
The thing is that what people recognized in Trump is that they recognized someone who is taking at a cost to themselves a position that was in favor of the people and paid a cost for it personally. Obviously, Trump has been essentially unpersoned from this high society. He lost all of his major donors. Right.
Do you think Trump was really in favor of the people? Trump was about the people? Trump gave a shit about the people at all? Or he just
I think partially, yeah.
Like
partially.
riling them up.
I'm not saying he's perfect or anything, but I think that he had no why did he do what he did? He could have done nothing. He could have just done nothing. Why did he even run for president? He could have just done nothing. He actually expressed that a few times. He was like, I kind of just want to drive out of here. I wish I hadn't run. That's why he's not going to run again, because it costs a lot. He paid a high cost to do so. So there is actually some element of what you could call noblesse oblige, but he did face like the opposition of the entire media, right? Being unpersoned and called like the worst person in the entire world. Like he actually did give up something, didn't he?
I don't know if he gave up anything.
I mean, he gave up just being able to just be an oligarch and just make money passively doing nothing, didn't he? Like he had to actually work.
Yeah, maybe he like fucked himself over this way, but like
Okay, so
I
do you
think he
think maybe
liked
the
it. You know,
people? Do you think
I think he
maybe?
loved it.
Do you think maybe?
I think he loves
Yeah, because
riling people
yes,
up and saying a bunch of
well,
absurd shit and
for
like
sure,
just mask
because
off.
people yearn for the recognition of the people. Trump wants to be in front of a crowd of people who see him as their champion and representing their interests because you can't buy that. That's something you can't buy. That's something you have to give up stuff for, you see. So even though Trump is flawed and was a failure in many ways, there's a perfectly rational reason why people lined up behind him and were loyal to him because they saw him as someone who is willing to forego their own self-interest in order to place themselves between the powers that be and the people. He brought so much friction to the deep state that they had to eliminate him by any means necessary. Okay. So he actually did perform a positive function.
Yeah. I don't think he performed a positive function at all.
Really? Really? You don't think that it's better that he was president than Hillary Clinton was?
I don't think Hillary Clinton would have performed a positive function at all either.
No, I think that she would have allowed for a more smooth functioning of the executive branch, the CIA, the FBI, all of these sorts of fucking things. I think Trump actually got in the way of a lot of that, which is what they say themselves, right? The intelligence community was constantly talking about how Trump was a thorn in their side, were they not?
Sure, but just being a thorn in the
Sure,
side.
it's not enough. It wasn't enough. We obviously want more than that, but is it absurd for people to have recognized that as a positive development?
I think it's not absurd for them to have recognized it to have seen it as a positive thing.
Okay,
right?
cool.
But I think that's a play of appearances.
Sure, but there's also a material reality at the basis of that. For instance, Trump did say that he wanted to eliminate NATO. Trump did say that he was opposed to foreign wars, interventions, etc. Trump did say that he wanted to have a more equitable balance of trade and things like that, and to eliminate a lot of the expenditure of the American executive branch to bring jobs back, etc., etc. He did say a lot of these things, right? Which is why he built up like people who were loyal to him because he claimed to be representing these very same things which we want.
I guess you could say that. Yeah, he turned the indignation of the masses, like, to his favor.
Yeah.
To his
Isn't that what
popular
we want to
favor.
do?
Huh?
What we want to do.
Well, we want to have the to organize the masses to seize and smash the state machine.
Yeah, isn't that what do you remember when Steve Bannon called himself a Leninist? Do you remember that? Because he said he wanted to do the same thing. He wanted to destroy the state power as it is now, give power to the people. I mean, he's not exactly like a great communist or anything. Like, I think he's wrong about a lot of things, but the rhetoric that they were using is like it inspires people in the same way for reasons, right? For like objective, like rational, material, political, economic reasons. Like it speaks to people. And who does it speak to? It speaks to the people that we want to speak to, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's to a portion of them for sure, right?
I would say most of them. I would
I
say
don't
that's
think
what mostly defines
I
it.
don't think most of like the working class or like the proletariat
Most of
is
the working class
MAGA.
are opposed. You don't think most of the working class are opposed to foreign interventionism?
They're opposed to foreign interventionism. I don't think they're like MAGA.
Okay, what do you mean by MAGA? Like, you don't think that they would self-consciously describe themselves as such? I guess.
I
Is that what
mean,
you're
part
saying?
of the MAGA movement, the people who are like, I'm fucking wearing my MAGA shit. I'm voting for Trump. Trump is gonna fucking save us.
Okay, well,
Like
I can look out my window right here and I see a Trump flag on the house across the street. I know the people who they're working class people and they call themselves MAGA. So at least in my immediate
there's
location,
some, they're
that's
split.
that just
Like you
seems to be the
said,
case.
they're like largely along cultural forces. Like like there's lots of like
I think they're
inner
split on
city
class
workers
lines a lot of the
who
time.
don't fuck
So,
with Trump.
well, who?
I don't know. There's not a lot of fucking Trump people like that I've encountered in my.
What I found is that now that he's gone, and people recognize how shitty Joe Biden is, a lot of people are saying like, "Hey, man, Trump was better than this." that's not even necessarily an act of support, but at least being able to say, like, like, weren't things better? Like, things were actually better under Trump than they are now. I think a lot of people say that.
Yeah, or at least they say Jesus Christ, like, you get rid of the fucking, like,
we'd be giving billions of dollars to Ukraine if Trump was president. Like, I don't think that would have flown.
I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Like, think about it, though. Seriously, do you think that Trump would have been all in on support for, like, Zelensky and all this shit? Like, obviously not. The Republicans are the ones who voted against it. Obviously, the party had no interest in that. It was an interest coming from that's mostly aligned with the Democrats. I mean, Bernie Sanders voted for giving billions of dollars to fucking Ukraine. Who's actually representing, like, who's representing, like, the communistic force here? Is it really? Do we really need Bernie Sanders people who have Ukraine flag emojis now?
No.
Like, do we really need those people?
No, we don't. That's really bad.
Yeah. Okay, so why is it that the Republicans are the ones who are, like, most open to being like, hey, we should have, like, more beneficial terms with, like, North Korea and China and Russia, and going to war is dumb? Why is it that the Ron Paul Institute is closer to, like, the Orthodox Leninist position on this than these quote-unquote Leninists who are like Vosh telling you that the Leninist position is to vote Biden? How does that happen?
Yeah, the thing is, too, is, like, right, because on the Trump side, you also have people who are like, yeah, like, leftists are, like, demon possessed. Like,
I think they are.
They
are. I think they're right to say that. I think they're absolutely right to say that the leftists in America, Anglophone leftists, are literally demonic. They're literally Satanists who are literally
like,
into black magic.
Like virulent anti-communists. They're like, some people on the right. No,
they're
like, Pinochet did nothing wrong.
They're okay. Some of them, but those aren't the normative MAGA people. Those are extremely online dissident right people who are former social democrats. That's what all of them are. They're former anarchists, former social democrats who've, instead of becoming like an anarcho-syndicalist, they're now anarcho-nationalists or eco-anarchists or what, some other fucking meme ideology, which is ultimately just their subjective idealism and their state of their beautiful soul, as Hegel would call it. But we're not talking about those people. We're talking about normal Republican MAGA people that you meet in everyday life. We're not talking about extremely online sickos. Okay, I think that the majority of those people who say these leftists, and when they say leftists, they mean Antifa, they mean people out there just burning buildings down and blowing shit up. They say that these people are demonic, and they like, are they wrong? I don't think so.
I kind of think. I mean, I think they're wrong. I don't think they're demon possessed, but like,
do you support arsonists and anarchy in the streets? Do you support this type of propaganda of the deed of burning down buildings?
Do I support it? Like, do I think it's like necessarily going anywhere? Like, I think it's an explosion of like anger and discontent.
Okay, so do you think that is how anger and discontent should be channeled in a civilization? Is that it should we should go burn down buildings? Is that what we should do? Would you recommend? Would you tell MAGA? Would you tell them that what they should do is go start burning down and raiding targets and things like that? Is that what they should do? Is that revolutionary practice?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, would you say that's counter-revolutionary or revolution? I think it's counter-revolutionary. That's what I think. What do you think?
I think, well, burning down the Target thing or whatever is, I mean, I would say it's like revolutionary, but I would also say that's not. Why is it revolutionary? That's revolutionary.
Why is it revolutionary? If I spray paint an anarchy sign on the side of my town hall, is that revolutionary?
No, it's just silly.
Okay, so if I go and I steal something from Walmart, am I a revolutionary?
No.
Okay. Then how is that? So how are those things revolutionary?
How is a riot revolutionary?
Yeah, how is a riot revolutionary?
Because it's literally like it's taking a certain action of force. It's asserting a mass.
Okay, but what is the effect of it? What is the effect? Doesn't it end up?
It depends. I mean, why was the riot was mobilized against like police?
All it's led is actually to more funding for the police. All it's done is justify more and more police force and more police spending. That's all it's done. It's counter-revolutionary.
Yeah, because it's just spontaneous
It's not
rage, but it
spontaneous.
hasn't.
It's not spontaneous. These are organized by networks. Like, the riots don't appear ex nihilo. They're organized. The Antifa networks, do you think that these Antifa networks represent a revolutionary outpouring, or are they counter-revolutionary forces that are giving a bad name to the class struggle and justifying fascist crackdowns and increased police budgets and surveillance? Like, what are they actually doing? Are they actually revolutionizing anything, or are they creating the conditions for increased surveillance and policing?
Well, I think it's like, that's part of the process, I guess, where they're fighting the fascists in the streets. Like, at least,
They
like,
are the fascists. They are the fascists. They are fascists.
It's just like everything turns into. It's like, so basically, the way you see it is that it's exact opposite of how it appears.
Yes, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. I want to turn the world upside down and put it back into its proper order, because things are upside down. And the anti-fascists, as they call themselves, are literal fascists supporting fascists in Ukraine materially. Correct? Am I wrong
Oh,
about
the
that?
anarchists in Ukraine? Yeah, the anarchists are bad. Don't get me wrong. Like,
Okay,
anarchists
so
are horrible.
is Antifa anarchists?
Not necessarily. I
Okay,
think there's an overwhelming presence of anarchism in Antifa that has, like,
in their symbolism that they disclose when they say this is what, and they dress up in these fashions and they present themselves, are they anarchists?
Not necessarily.
Okay, I'm asking you concretely, materially, when you see Antifa people, do you think of them, are they anarchists, or do you think that, or like, what are they? Like, what do they represent? These Portland, like, Antifa networks, etc. Are they not anarchists? Do they not have the anarchist bookstore and anarchist co-ops, and they fly the anarcho-syndicalist flag and they call themselves anarchists? Like, come on.
Yeah, those are anarchists. Fighting against fascism itself is not an anarchist thing. Is not just for the anarchists.
Maybe they're proliferating false consciousness, and what anarchists are actually fascists, and they're the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
I think they're anarchists and they're just dumb and make way for fascism.
Okay, so they're like the advanced guard of fascism. They create the conditions upon which a fascist hegemony justifies itself, right? They're like the people who create the conditions for an increase in fascist powers. And I think that actually makes perfect sense, because if you look at 2020, what did Antifa accomplish? They accomplished the election of Joe Biden, who's a fascist, correct?
I wouldn't say Joe Biden is necessarily like a fascist.
Really? You wouldn't call Jim Crow Joe a fascist? The guy who's sending billions of dollars of armaments to neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and wrote the crime bill and all these other things. Like, he's not a fascist? What is he?
He's an imperialist. He's like,
what's the difference?
I mean, I think it's a slight difference.
What's the difference? If we really want to split hairs at the molecular level, why don't you enlighten me as to what the difference is?
Well, I mean, I would say the difference is that, like, fascism is a sort of internal reflection of imperialism.
Okay, so they're like,
two sides
imperialism.
of the same coin.
Imperialism is like the grand picture, and then fascism is like a version, is like the description of imperialism from within the empire. I don't know. I like, we're splitting hairs at a molecular level here. I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah,
I would
sure,
agree with
but,
MAGA
like,
people when they said Joe Biden is a fascist, Joe Biden is Hitler. When they say stuff like that, I go, yeah, they're entirely correct on that point. Would you say no?
I mean, I don't know. I would be like, yeah. I guess rhetorically, I would be like, yeah, this is fine.
Wait, not rhetorically. I mean, like, theoretically, I think that they're absolutely grounded in reality to say that.
I mean, it's just, the issue to me seems to be one of, like, the theory of fascism is at issue here.
It's fascism is the anarchy of social production. Fascism is the anarchy of production. Fascism is anti-authoritarian, believe it or not, because fascism doesn't believe in authority; it believes in force, and there's actually a difference, right? That there's a distinction between justification by authority and justification by force. Anarchists are fascists because they justify themselves by force.
They do not accept any transcendental authority. They are opposed to all transcendental authority. And so we're the fascists. Correct?
I don't know. I don't think of it in those terms. So,
okay, but what is there anything that I've said that is like disagreeable to you in that front? Do you follow my logic here?
To an extent, I follow your logic, but it seems to be in a way I don't. I guess it's just like I don't. How
have you
does
ever
this
lived
relate
in
to
an
like the historical
anarchist? Have you ever
Marxist
lived?
theory of like fascism?
Have you ever lived in an anarchist co-op? I actually did one summer. I had really cheap housing at this. It was an anarchist co-op in Boston. I lived in one summer. You ever live with anarchists?
No, but please tell me a funny story.
Oh, they're just fascists. The way that they run things is pure fascism. They run everything on cults of personality, and it's all done like through brute force. Like, how do they get people to do the dishes in a fascist department? What you do is you mob together everyone and you have a struggle session where you all yell at one person and you scapegoat them. And that's why these houses are fucking dens of iniquity.
Yeah, it's fucking sad.
Okay, so what I'm telling you is, I don't know. I've experienced in real life that anarchists are basically the same as fascists. They hang out in the same places. You could call fascism quote unquote right wing anarchy. What it really is just like a type of tribalistic force politics for I don't know, particular subjects, I guess.
Like the story of like the United Japanese, I think it's United Red Army of Japan or Japanese, where they like went up in the woods and like half of them killed the other half of them.
That's anarchists. Yeah, that's how anarchists work.
Yeah.
That's like the Chaz.
But it's also like Trotskyism too. Like
yeah,
even like
Trotskyism is the same thing. Yeah, exactly.
like
These
why are the
ultra
Trotskyists
leftists
out there like strike breaking all the time? Like that shit's fucking weird. That the Trotskyyists
it's not that
would do
weird.
the
It's not that
fascist
weird
job
because they're
for them.
elitists. The truth of the matter is that these people are elitists, and they're elitists in a spiritual sense, in that they believe that they are the elect because they are the ones who have the correct theoretical line, and everyone else is unenlightened. And thus, by being unenlightened, they are less valuable as people, which is why they can target other people as being like because they don't toe the line that they do, that they don't recognize their humanity. They only recognize the humanity of people who agree with them theoretically. And if you actually extended this, you see this happen with a lot of anarchists. They go, wait a minute, what if people are just too dumb to agree with me, right? What if they have a genetic predisposition to not being intelligent enough to agree with my anarchist theory of things? Well, then they become Nazis. That's all it is. As they say, actually, anarchism is only suitable for the Aryan man. That's what Hitler said, basically.
All right. Well, you're convincing me a little bit of this anarchist or fascist thing.
That's what it's. I'm telling you, it's the reality of it. If you want to really get it, read Fernando Pessoa's "The Anarchist Banker," because actually, a lot of bankers describe themselves as anarchists because they say that they don't recognize the authority of the state. Right? They believe in the free flow of capital.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it that the term privatization was coined basically to describe what was going on in Germany?
I guess, yeah. I'm talking about way back. I'm talking about the City of London Corporation and the Magna Carta, where the bankers described their right to be above both Crown and Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that the task, right? Is, if I understand it correctly, of MAGA communism.
It's communism. It's the same thing.
Huh?
They're the same. They're the same. It's communism in America as MAGA communism. It's a communism in the American state. It's a communism with American characteristics, you could say. It's just what we find as Americans, the form of communism that we are providentially deputed, in a sense. This is our destiny.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see about that. I'm not so sure.
You don't have faith?
Because
you gotta have faith.
Well, to me, it seems like mostly like a sort of marketing ploy. It seems just, I don't know why it can't just be communism.
Well, it is.
Okay, well, so like the MAGA thing, it's just like, well, where did the MAGA slogan even first come from? Like from like Reagan, like it's like
No, it doesn't.
profoundly anti-communist.
Well, so then what are we doing is we're taking these things and reappropriating them for the use by the people. You could say that we're actually seizing the means of production here. We're seizing this meme, you could say, right? And now
The
we're
means
putting
of
it to work
production.
for the opposite, right? So it's sort of like, like we can actually transvaluate this thing and use it for our purposes as opposed to just being critical of it and just being like, no, we'll never do that. We're saying, actually, no, that's ours now. Isn't that more revolutionary than saying like, oh, this slogan that appeals to millions of people, we're just going to leave that for the forces of reaction. We're going to say that can only ever be for Reaganite type of anti-communism. Isn't it more revolutionary for us to say, actually, that's ours? Actually, the essence of this is fundamentally stolen from us, and we're giving it back to its rightful place with the people. That the people are the ones who are going to make America great again.
Well, it's nice and cheeky. It's good in that sense.
Yeah, doesn't it? It gets the people riled up, right? And it's already proliferating because it makes people react to it, and people have very strong opinions about it, and it gets people talking about it, right? So it seems like it's very effective. You're saying it's just marketing, but I think marketing is very important.
I don't think it's not important, but my whole point from the very beginning was that you can't forget this other side too, which is sees MAGA as and it's not just fucking petty bourgeois anarchists and shit. It's like working class people who like see the anarchists or see the fucking MAGA people like marching
I don't know. I'm going to
under a
tell
sort of
you, at least
bourgeois patriotism,
when
bourgeois
it comes to my
nationalism
own,
that
I'm just going to tell you from my own experience. From my own experience, most people work with people who are on various sides of this electoral demographic mapping or whatever, such that there are the types of Democrats, you could say, who would not countenance a friendship with someone who espouses MAGA or like was supporting January 6th, et cetera. This has brought a lot of conflict across a lot of things. But I think that most people who work in amongst people with differing opinions on these things are more interested in like their kind of fundamental unity. Like they wouldn't excise a family member for being supporting MAGA or whatever, even if they're a Democrat. They would say we have different opinions, right? But there's fundamentally a type of agreement that we could come to. Or are you saying that like the term we have to accommodate? I don't see it going the other way around. I don't really personally, in my personal experience in my life, maybe other people have had different experiences than me. I don't really see that many MAGA people who are like isolating and cutting friends off and trying to unperson other people for disagreeing with them.
Sure. I mean, I don't
Like, I think
don't
if
know,
anything,
but
the
like
bigotry is one way. Like, I feel like there's more people who are bigoted against MAGA people than people in MAGA who are bigoted ostensibly against anyone else. I think MAGA people in general are mostly like looking for just anyone who agrees with them and accept everyone with open arms. Like, if you go
I
to
mean,
any Trump rally, you're going to see
on the
people
surface,
from
yeah,
a
but I
million
think
different backgrounds. He appeals across on a deeper level, such that like it attracts a bunch of different people. Like we're supposed to pretend that there's like no black Trump supporters, there's no Hispanic Trump supporters, there's no minority trans or gay or whatever. There's no minority or oppressed people who support Trump, but that's not true. Tons of them support Trump, and in fact, they're often championed to. This was actually to the chagrin of white nationalists and stuff who wanted to co-opt the MAGA movement. Was how open-minded MAGA people were for anyone who claimed a common cause with them. The white nationalists were the ones who were always saying, "Oh, we need to do more gatekeeping. We can't allow these like black conservatives or whatever to come in because we're white nationalists." Those are the people who are trying to gatekeep the MAGA movement. They've all left it anyway. Look at Richard Spencer. He went from trying to co-opt it to realizing that he couldn't because the actual base of MAGA people were not bigoted like him. So he found his home in his rightful place, supporting Joe Biden.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess the thing is like, a lot of the MAGA people are staunchly anti-communist, and that's
What
like
does
a
that
big.
mean? What does that mean? They say that, but
They say that, but
maybe what they're trying to say that maybe so what you're saying is that formally they express themselves as anti-communists, but in their essence they are not anti-communists. What they are is that they understand when they use the term communism, what they mean is the rule of elite technocrats, elite social market engineers. So when they say communism, they mean that. And if I'm with them and they go and I say, what is communism to you? And they say, it's the World Bank, it's the IMF, it's Mark Zuckerberg and these people at Davos and Bilderberg. I go, oh hell yeah, I oppose that too.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
do I care
But that's the
what
point.
they call
That's
it?
where I would say this is like that's where it's in a certain sense you're actively saying, yeah, that's not what communism is.
Yeah, I
Like, you
say I
should be a
oppose that.
communist.
I would say to them, I
They
would
will
say,
stop being
this is what
anti-communist.
you
But
do.
the
You say
anti-communism
this.
is baked
This
into
is what you say. This is what you
the
say.
MAGA.
This is what you say to them. You go and you do this in real life, by the way. When you say, what is communism to you? And they say, it's this, this, and that. And you say, well, as a communist, I'm opposed to all of those things. Now you're presenting the contradiction to them. And they would say, what do you mean? I thought that all communists supported these things. I thought that's what communism was. And you go, actually, this is what communism is. And they go, maybe I've been lied to about communism like I've been lied to about other things. That's what you actually do. You don't just
No, I
stand there
completely
and
agree. And
go,
there's a
you're
change that
wrong.
happens. But
You're
there's a change
wrong.
that happens
Actually,
there.
go read a book, idiot. That's not what communism is, dummy. You don't make fun of them. You actually recognize the essence of truth that they're trying to disclose in what you might call a formally incorrect manner. But the form doesn't matter. What matters is the essence.
Yeah, I agree, but a change happens there when maybe I've been lied to about communism.
Yes, but
This communism stuff sounds pretty good.
That change come about if you just immediately say you're wrong? That's not what communism is.
I don't do that. I mean, I am
okay.
actually
Well,
with
I'm
you.
saying,
I think
would
it's
you
pretty
advocate
easy.
that?
I think it's actually pretty easy to, like, if you have even a pretty basic grasp on Marxism and can, like, explain it in terms and are, like, sympathetic to who you're talking to, it can be pretty easy to get people to, like, largely agree with you and to, like,
because it's
sympathize
just
and to,
common
like,
sense.
question their
It's
anti-communism.
common sense. It's common sense.
It's not that. It's like, but and it's when the fucking anarchists or they completely go, oh my gosh, um you don't understand these things, so you must be a horrible person, like you're
because
corrupted
those
in your
people are
soul.
reactionaries. Do you
Yeah,
see what I'm saying?
totally.
Those people are fascists.
Well, it's incorrect to do that. Like that, like you
Yes,
have to
they do that
actually, if you
because
want.
they are fascists. They're not doing it because they're making a mistake. They're disclosing the actual reality of their sentiments, which is that they're fascists.
Well, it's that they hate the masses.
They're
They
fascists.
harbor a
Yes, they're
hatred for the
anarchists. They're
masses.
elitist socialists. Elitists in the sense that they believe in punishing who they see as their enemy, which is actually the working class. They see their interests as opposed to the interests of the working class. They hate the working class. They think the working class are backwards.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, so then we're not trying to get those people on board. I mean, they can get on board when they correct themselves and they realize that they're fascists, but we're not going to, like, prostrate ourselves to make them comfortable. We want them to be uncomfortable. We want to rattle them up so much that they actually come to terms with the fact that they're fascists.
Well, why can we, like, I think we should, in a certain sense, do what we do with the MAGA people, is we should say, why you harbor such a hatred for the masses? You treat people like this. It's like,
that's what
people
we're
don't all
doing.
have the
That's
same
what we're
understanding,
doing
and you're a
every
fucking
single
anarchist, so
time.
you're wrong anyway.
That's what we do when we go and we talk to MAGA people and we talk about MAGA communism. We're doing that. We're representing that their antagonism to these people for years, their antagonism to these people is completely unjustified. Isn't that what we're doing?
Yeah, I think that, but you have to, you're trying to make a change, right? You're trying to say,
we wanted them to change their minds, but we're mostly
you're
doing that
struggling
by
with the MAGA
representing
against
those people.
you're engaged in a sort of ideological struggle with the MAGA over this communism thing. You're saying, hey,
no, we're engaged with we are working with the MAGA people. We are in an ideological struggle against the social democrats, my friend. We are we are on the side of MAGA, opposed to these people. The term communism is perhaps the court that we are fighting over, but we want to win that term for MAGA and not for the social democrats. We are going to take it from them.
Why wouldn't you just don't you want to win that term for the workers as a class?
MAGA. Yeah, the MAGA people are the workers. Yeah.
I don't think that's the whole point, is that they're not all MAGA people. Sorry. Like, they're just not.
Okay, what's the biggest working class movement in America right now?
The biggest working class movement, probably like I would say.
Okay, so
Since where's the
the
hottest points
DSA
of
or
struggle?
MAGA?
I think
The
one of the
DSA
hottest
or
points is
MAGA?
at the
The
Amazon
DSA.
warehouse for
These are
sure.
your options: the DSA or MAGA.
These are the. I think that's. I
That's
think that's
reality.
silly.
That's reality. The DSA or MAGA.
I think these are different. These are both
Pick
different
one.
than
No,
the
I'm putting
class.
gun to your head right now. DSA or MAGA. You have to go invest your resources into defending the interests of a particular group, class of people and a particular movement. Who are you going to line up with, MAGA or the DSA? They're obviously opposed. So which one are you going to side with?
Yeah, I don't know. They seem pretty similar to me, honestly.
I think they're not similar. I think that they're actually in they oppose each other directly. So which one would you side with?
I think they both oppose the interest of the working class.
I disagree.
And that the anti-communism baked into MAGA is the thing
are
struggling against.
It's not.
And
you're saying the formal expression being anti-communist is what defines it, but I'm saying the essence is what defines it. I don't care if they say that they hate communism.
People don't
because when they say
communism,
they
people
mean
know what the fuck they're
the DSA.
doing.
Because I hate the DSA
Communism
too.
is a conscious thing.
Yes.
Communism is something we consciously
okay.
do. Is the class consciously does
Communism is the actual movement of working people as they are. Now, if we're saying there's an actual movement of working people opposing the prevailing hegemony, would you say that that is represented by MAGA or by the DSA?
It's represented by neither. It's represented by the fucking communists.
Okay, so where are the communists, my friend? Are they in the DSA or in MAGA? Tell me.
Well, I would hope, but it's both me and you.
Okay, so I'm telling you that I'm saying MAGA. So is it both me and you? Because you're saying you can't tell the difference.
I'm saying that communism is the process of peeling people away from the social democratic line.
We want to peel people away from the DSA into MAGA. That's what we want to do. What do you want to do? You want to do the opposite? You want to get MAGA people to join the DSA? I don't think so.
No, I want to reconstitute the Communist Party. I want a fucking Communist Party.
CPUSA.
I don't want a
the
fucking
CPUSA
MAGA
exists right now, right?
DSA
the
caucus.
CPUSA exists right now, right?
Party.
The CPUSA exists right now, right? Are they on the side of the DSA or the side of MAGA?
The CPUSA is not necessarily like what.
Where do they line up with? Just tell me. It's obvious. Where do they line up with? Does the CPUSA?
They line up with the DSA.
Okay, so are they? So I'm saying that they are reactionary and they are tailing the Democratic Party and they are fascists. I'm opposed to the CPUSA too. I want them to join MAGA.
You want everyone to join MAGA, but what
absolutely,
I
want everyone to join MAGA. That is correct. That is my position. I'm a MAGA communist.
MAGA and communism are just synonymous.
Yes. That's what we're trying to make happen. That is the project that we are engaged in. Are you involved in this project?
No,
or would you like to rehabilitate the DSA and the CPUSA, etc.?
I think this is completely one-sided. I think it's doing limited work amongst the reactionary mass base
the reactionary mass base is the DSA, my friend. The reactionary mass base is the DSA. That's what you're not understanding. You have everything backwards. The reactionary mass base is the DSA. The progressive mass base is MAGA.
I didn't think the progressive mass base is MAGA at all.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't think the progressive mass base is MAGA.
Okay, well, you're a DSA guy then, huh? That's basically what you're saying.
No, I don't see why this is like you're just creating this thing. It's like, oh,
no, I'm not. This bears out in the actual plane of material reality right now. Is that when the MAGA people say they hate communists, who do they mean? They mean the DSA. When the DSA people say that they hate fascists, who do they mean? They mean MAGA. Now, are the MAGA people fascists?
They are duped by the
Are they fascists? Are they fascists?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, are the DSA people fascists?
They're social democrats.
Are they? So they're fascists, right? Because social democracy is the moderate wing of fascism, correct?
Sure.
That's what Lenin said, right?
That's what Stalin said.
Yes, I mean it's a basic agreement. If you're a communist, you recognize social democrats as being fascists, right? So are the DSA fascists or MAGA fascists?
That statement,
are the DSA fascists or MAGA fascists?
the MAGA is fascist.
Oh wait, no. Which one is
MAGA
no?
is
They're not.
fascist.
They are not. I am saying they are not. I am
I
saying the
think when
DSA are the
the Proud
fascists.
Boys, I think when the Proud Boys
The
walk
Proud
down
Boys
the
are not
street with a
MAGA. They
flag that
don't
says
represent the
"Make
MAGA
America
people.
Great Again" and a T-shirt that
The
says
Proud Boys are
"Pinochet did nothing wrong," that's a
the
lot
Proud
different
Boys.
than
The
a
Proud
fucking.
Boys were artificially inflated by Democrat media in order to paint the MAGA movement as nothing but Proud Boys. But the Proud Boys are very ancillary and fundamental base in the MAGA movement. Most of the MAGA people are not Proud Boys. That's not the same thing. That's not equivalent. That's absurd, frankly. So, yeah, I do not fucking side with the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys are fucking losers, and they're actually closer to the Social Democrats and the DSA fuckers than not.
Yeah, well, they're the ones with the flags that say "Make America Great Again."
No, they're not. All the normal people all across this country have "Make America Great Again" flags all over the place. I can see one out of my window. It's my neighbor. That person is not a fascist. I talk to them. I know them. I know their positions, and they are more progressive in this sense, in a real, meaningful sense. They have more revolutionary consciousness than any of the DSA anarcho fuckers that I've ever met in my entire fucking life. That's a fact.
Yeah, that's the sort of point I was trying to make, though.
Okay,
Is that
so
like you
now
have
again,
to?
I'm going to repeat the point that I've been making over and over again. There are two mass movements of people in America. There are the DSA and there's MAGA. Which side are you on?
Which side am I on? I'll be on the DSA side.
Yeah, okay, there we are. You're my enemy.
I think the DSA
You would
is
rather
more
side with the people
progressive.
you would say that the MAGA people are duped by fascism, but you're lining up behind the party that supports Joe Biden, who's a
I
fascist,
line up. I would align with the DSA in so far as
in
they
electing
oppose
Democrats.
this
So you're
abortion
worthless. You're
bill.
worthless to me. You're worthless to me because push comes to shove at the end of the day, you're going to line up with the DSA and all of these leftoids and you're going to vote for a Democrat. And
I'm
you're
not
going to
going to
say
vote for a Democrat. No, you can have a
you're going to
tactical
canvass for
unity.
Democrats. That's
I
what the
believe in a
DSA does.
united
What
front.
does the DSA do? What does the DSA accomplish in material reality? What do they get done? They elect Democrats. That's it. That is all that they do.
The DSA, I mean, has a lot of people involved in labor
Electing
organizing.
Democrats, yeah, and canvassing for Democrats. Yeah, they get a lot of people involved in getting Democrats elected. The Democrats are the
Yeah,
fascist party.
they should. I'm not like about. I don't think there should be a strategic unity with the alliance with the DSA. It's only
You just said that you would line up with them. You said that at the end of the day, you would line up with them
a tactical alliance.
because you think that they would defend you. Because you're afraid of MAGA people, but you're not afraid of DSA people.
Because
DSA
I think they
people
defend
would accept
the
you.
rights of the people.
What do you mean by that?
The rights to vote, the right
You think MAGA
of
people don't believe in the right
healthcare
to
of
vote?
women, the
You don't think MAGA
not
people believe in the right to vote? You don't think MAGA people are opposed to big pharma and the big insurance companies and they don't want to break all this up? You think the MAGA people are really that opposed to universal health care? Donald Trump ran on universal health care. He said that it would be better. He defended Medicare and Medicaid. These people are not like the way that you're presenting them. You're believing propaganda about them, which is written by your DSA friends.
I mean, the thing is that the MAGA movement or whatever, the people, you have to distinguish between the I guess I would say the vanguard force of
I'm
the
the
MAGA
vanguard
movement
of
is the
MAGA.
Proud Boys.
I'm the vanguard of MAGA. Me.
I don't think you are. I think you
I am.
guys are just like
I am.
kind of
I
funny
am.
online, like
I
stirring
am.
shit
No,
up.
I'm not just funny online. Like my ideas are proliferating and we're altering the consciousness in a revolutionary fashion. It's going to continue
Okay.
happening
Well, I hope
because we have a
just get
stronger
over this
theoretical basis.
period in
We
the
have a
fucking
stronger
communist movement
listen.
because you're not.
Listen, this is the fact of the matter. We have a stronger theoretical basis when it comes to a dialectical engagement as we're displaying right now between me and you. I expose the fact that you fundamentally line up with the democratic socialists and you believe all of the propaganda against MAGA people and you are so bigoted against these people and you are so obsessed with painting them as fascist and reactionary that you will not accept the truth of the matter, which is that they represent the working class of America better than the democratic socialists do. You still believe in the democratic socialists. At the end of the day, you are going to go with them. And they are opposed to the interests of the people. They have no problem with Amazon and Starbucks so long as they get an Amazon union and a Starbucks union. That's it. That's the extent of their progressivism. They're corporate fascists. And that's what you are, because you do not see it. And you are projecting this onto the innocent working class people of America. That's what's happening. Do you not see this? This is educative. I'm trying to teach you something. Everyone else sees what I see. People see what I see. More people every day see what I see. Our arguments are winning. Our stance is winning. We have the mandate of heaven here. Okay, we're building this consciousness. This dialectic we're having right now is part of that. We're revealing truths here. You are not truly revolutionary enough, my friend, because you are afraid of actually, this is what it comes down to. You are afraid of the democratic socialists. You're afraid of the DSA Antifa people because you know how fucking psychotic they are. You know that because you're familiar with them, and you're afraid of those people being opposed to you. You want them on your side. You want to get on their side. You want to be in their good graces. You would line up with them at the end of the day because those are the people that surround you. You are in a milieu infected with democratic socialists and social fascists, moderate fascists, etc. And you are paranoid, not of those people who you should well be paranoid of because they're fucking demonic. You're paranoid about the average working class people who oppose the deep state and the globalists and oppose foreign interventions and oppose you're opposed to those people. You're more afraid of those people than you are of all of these fucking psychotic democratic socialists you're surrounded with. Why is that? MAGA people have never done anything like that to me. MAGA people aren't the people who harass me. MAGA people don't threaten my life. MAGA people don't call me names. They don't call me a fascist. They say, you know what? I like you even though you're a communist, right? That's interesting, isn't it? Why are they more open-minded? Why are they more accepting and tolerant of a diversity of formal expressions of the same essence? They care about the essence. They care, do you love this country? Number one. Do you love this country? You don't. You don't love this country. I know you don't. You don't love this country. So essentially, you are not on the same team. Formally, you may express all sorts of things, but essentially, you are lined up against those people. You got anything else, bud? All right, we're going to move on to the next one then. What's up, homie?
Hello?
Howdy.
Hey, how are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Just defending the truth here, as always.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you were pointing out about how, we really are changing the dialectic. I was watching that Haas video and I was like, holy shit, man, this, like, everything that's happened, like, we really are doing more than any leftist group has ever done before.
Listen, man, this is all like, I keep believing it's like we've returned to like the alternate path of 2009. Like we've seen like the bad future route of the year 2009, and we're back in 2009. We have an opportunity to take the good road. And what the good road in 2009 would have been all of the forces of like Occupy, which we've now realized are actually the forces of reaction. If those people had come around with like the Tea Party type people and the Ron Paul type people, and it all come together on a strong anti-imperialist message, right? Because that was possible in 2009. And what happened instead was we had the progressive stack. We had this like push towards like corporate DemSoc, etc., which is what led to the Trump reaction in the first place. So like we're now in like we have what we're trying to do is take the alternate path of this alternate possibility that existed in the year 2009. That's what we're representing right now. Is we're saying look at what we have learned in that bad future run is basically if you let Occupy, the people behind like Adbusters, etc., these Canadian anarchists, if you allow them to be your vanguard, this is what you get.
Well, I think I see what you're saying. at the same time, I think, it's also largely a reaction to the reality of the crisis that we face today and the fact
It's
that
the
it's
same
really coming
crisis.
to a head.
It's literally the same crisis as in 2009, though. Like, none of the problems have been solved. Like, it's just an unfolding, the continual unfolding of the same crisis. Like, that's what it is.
Oh, yes, I agree. I mean, they've kicked the can down the road for many, many, many years. But, like, what I mean is now it's all, like, so obvious and it's all coming to a head. I mean, the like Putin has said, the unipolar moment is over. It's already over. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's why
didn't
we're
end in
getting.
2008, but now
Yeah, that's
shit
why
is really hitting the fan.
that's why there's been like a newfound like buttressing of forces behind the Democratic Party, because it's a state in decline. Like, the thing is, the Republicans can't even be trusted to keep it running like that, because the Republicans are starting to be opposed to it. That's like what the real revolutionary thing that happened, is that you can't trust, like, the Democrats can't trust the Republicans to keep running shit in this normative sense. Like, they're afraid that like the Republicans could actually lead a revolution, or like someone like Trump. That's like the real fear. They portray January 6th as a more frightening moment than 9/11 now. Like, it's psychotic. But that's really what's happened. Like, it's all become more clear. Things have only clarified themselves.
So, Logo, I wanna ask you, because I think I've seen you talk about this a little bit, but I really want to hear you right now. Tell me, like, what your opinion is on the whole green fascism and the
Oh, I mean,
ecological movement that we're facing today, and how
it's literally
relevant do you think that
eugenics. It's
is?
literally eugenics. The origin of it, all of this stuff goes back to like these fucking like these the yuppies and like the hippies and like the new left. Like, their whole thing was like, oh my god, isn't proletarian labor so dehumanizing? Like, aren't like what we really want are like jobs that are like service positions, where like your identity is like the specific task that you perform, as opposed to proletarian labor, where your identity is actually derived not from the specific task you perform, but from everything else in your life, right? Like, the guy who worked in the factory building like the Fords and things like that, he wasn't like, oh, like I am defined by my service role in this corporate enterprise. They're like, no, like I support a family, and like, I like sports, and like my real identity is like outside of my working conditions. My working conditions are solely how I can reproduce my actual means of life. Whereas people in service positions, they're like, my job is my life, like my job is my identity. And these hippies, they were like, oh, we're going to give everyone identity based jobs, right? Everyone will be able to be an artist or a service worker of some sort, in this sort of sense of like, following their dreams to be like, I don't know, a fucking service worker of some sort. And they believe that proletarian labor would all be automated and would be removed, which is why they were like, the anti-work movement, etc. They were totally fine with sending all of these jobs outside of America, because, as these people say, those are shit jobs anyway, right? Like, you don't want those jobs. You want to be an accountant. You want to be a marketer. You want to be a public relations expert, etc. That's what the deal was here. These people are also like, they believe in automating all of these things such that we won't have any like dirtiness, I guess. We have to degrowth and like downsize such that we don't have the blight that is like industrial civilization. This is like what they say. They're opposed to like the flourishing of wealth and the accumulation of capital in this very primitive sense. They're like, they want to they hate humanity. At the end of the day, they think there's too many people, too many are born, and we need to downsize. We can't create more flourishing for everybody. In fact, there's too much. There's already too much, and what we can only do now is downsize. So we need less people, we need less industry, we need less energy, we need less mining, we need less lumber, we need less of everything. That's their whole shtick.
Well,
It's just,
Logo, could I
yeah.
ask you, do you do you believe that there is climate change occurring? And if so, what do you think is the best way we actually go about addressing it? And
Climate's always changing. Climate's been changing for eternity. The climate's always changing. I think that there's no reason to be afraid of this. If we had a more like scientific governance, we had a more rational governance under, say, communism. Like, you can look at what China's doing to address their climate concerns. They have more ability to act on these things because they have a state which is running in the public good. Like, the only reason to be concerned about climate change is because it will impact people. We don't give a fuck about nature as such. Like, nature as such is fucking hell to us, and we want to turn nature into an artwork of human civilization, such that we harness all of these forces for our own flourishing. Like, what's so wrong about like the world getting warmer and there being more carbon? That means we can green the Sahara Desert. That means we can make more productive land.
Green Arizona. That's where I'm
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, that's what we're about. We're not about this like maintaining this like snapshot of the climate as it currently is and being like, oh, we need to like, maintain things as they are forever. No, we want to improve everything.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree with everything you're saying, Logo, and it's great to hear you saying it. And I haven't heard anyone lay out the policy to actually be able to do exactly what it is you're saying and put us on that path.
Well, before that, you
Unlike
have
Lyndon
to
LaRouche,
actually.
like Lyndon LaRouche is the man who laid it out, and the World Land Bridge is, you said, create the world into an artwork. Well, that's what the World Land Bridge will
Yeah.
be, because we'll
No,
all be cooperating on how to make the Earth
honestly,
the
the thing
most
about
perfect living
the thing about LaRouche,
artwork.
though, is that ultimately his greatest like legacy is found in China and not in America. That's the real problem, I think, with like his movement is that he like that like has like a very bad reputation here. It actually, I would think, would make more sense to just look at like Chinese Marxism than it
Does
would be to
Trump
try
have
to
a bad
rehabilitate it.
reputation? They slander Trump all day, every day, and
That's
Trump
true.
is a hell
That's
of a lot
true.
of less
No,
of a
that's
man
true.
than
I
Lyndon
agree with you
LaRouche.
on this. What I'm just saying is that we can take like maybe LaRouche has some claim to the genesis of some of these ideas that were even brought over to like the Chinese state, for example. But I think we should celebrate more the Chinese implementation of this sort of thing than just the propaganda for it in the first place. So like I would say it's much better to point to like Xi Jinping or like an actual state that's operating under these principles than just the popularizer of some of its ideals. That's my little strategic thinking, I guess, on this. Um, I'm not. I also don't really care that much about like championing particular people or whatever. I think all of this can be done without having to be like, oh, and you must like Stalin, and you must like Lenin, and you must like Karl Marx. I don't really care about like forcing people into like reifying
Well,
like the
that's not
cult
what
of
I'm saying either.
specific
That's
people or
that's
whatever.
not at all what I'm saying either. But it's not like we're just referring to the men. We're referring to
The
scientific
project.
ideas and
The point is
principles
the
and a
project.
project.
The
Yeah.
point is the project. The project is more important. But the thing is, the project is now owned by the Chinese state. Like the New Silk Road, the World Land Bridge, all of these things. These are being pushed by the like Chinese sphere of influence more so than anywhere else. So it's really like we support China, and we think that America and China should be brother nations, and that we could have an extremely beneficial partnership for both of us. I think that's what we should be standing for.
Well, it just seems to me, and like Kent Bot was doing this weird shit where he was saying that, Lyndon LaRouche and Helga Zepp LaRouche are like CIA agents, and that they are like, just this crazy bullshit.
Well,
And
I think the thing is that a lot of people right now are kind of like, I don't know. Like a lot of people are becoming more pessimistic about things. I think that fundamentally a lot of this parapolitical research and like obviously it's become so popular that the CIA now has its own CIA history podcast or whatever. It's now just like a form of like true crime for men or whatever. I don't really care. I don't really think it's that revolutionary or that it's doing that much for the people in general. I think that it's mostly a kind of diversion. I don't think that like going through and like having like like this obsession with like parapolitics is that meaningful or beneficial. I think that like at the end of the day, we're gonna know what happens if we are able to get a people's governance such that we can actually do a real auditing of these things with state power and hold it to like a juridical reality. I don't think it's really that important or meaningful to do all of these investigations independently. The only meaningful way to do these investigations is to do so with the backing of state power. So
well,
that's really
that's
what
what
I
we're
say.
trying to do. We got Diane Sayre running against Chuck Schumer, the worst senator we have, the face of the Great Reset, the face of bankers. You could go on Open Secret and look at the people who are donating to his
Yeah.
campaign right now. Now, he's not even pretending to be running. Now, he's pretending like there's no type of election happening whatsoever at all. Ballotpedia barely mentions Diane, but meanwhile, New York State required more signatures to get on the ballot than any other state. The
Yeah,
Libertarians couldn't get on, the
it's a
Greens couldn't get
mafia
on,
state.
no
It's a
one can
mafia
get
state.
on. No one
It's
could
run
get
by the
on. You needed
mafia.
45,000 signatures. Diane got 67,000. She's going to be the only person on the ballot except for the know-nothing Republican Joe Pinion. And it's funny that he's named that because Joe Pinion has no opinion.
Yeah.
He has not a single thing on his website. He's not a serious candidate because both the Republicans and the Democrats work for the same people, and they're never going to try and get
Yeah.
rid of Chucky Boy.
So what I would say is that, like, yeah, that's like nice and stuff, and like you can use that as a platform to proliferate a lot of stuff. But the problem is that on that level, people aren't even paying attention to who they're voting for. I think really, if you want to make real change, you have to do so at a much smaller local level. You should be running candidates at the township level and at the county level, and then
Well,
build
it's all a
power from
part of a
there.
process. We have this one younger, we're just starting up like a youth movement. And there's one younger member, his name is Isaiah. And he works at the post office. And he is going to be running eventually to be the head of like the post office union, I believe. Or something along those
Yeah,
lines,
that's really
So
more meaningful to me. Like, I think that
it's not,
those
I don't
struggles
think that
are
we should be
ultimately
putting
more
a
meaningful.
barometer on what is more and more meaningful. The
I'm just
point
telling
is
you
we
what I
need to
think.
do an all-out assault on all fronts. Everyone who is
Sure,
thinking
sure,
pro-growth and is against this green
sure. But I'm
fascism and
about
is
taking
against what the
W's.
Democrats are doing.
What I like are material W's, and I don't like symbolic victories that are ultimately losses. So, like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think there's a chance in hell that Diane is going to win that election. Chuck Schumer has that wrapped up for reasons that are beyond, as you've even explained. So, like, the best thing that will be represented is to show like that it's effectively raped. That's all that it's going to represent there. I think that but you could actually seize actual real power on a more local level, and that would be a win and not just a symbolic like pedagogical lesson. So I think that's why I'm saying, I think personally, in my opinion, the way I understand things, it would be more beneficial to seize power on a local level,
Well,
in an
one of the
election that you can
big
actually
things that
win.
we're trying to do, Logo, and this is where, I would love you to come in, is, we're trying to build leadership for the future of people who understand, you know,
Yeah,
government, understand our country, who are proud, they're patriots, they understand our country's history, which you more than almost I think anyone else on Twitter have exposed me to in my life and have gotten me interested in. And we need people who are proud to be American and
well,
they know
I'm
what it
doing what I can,
takes
man. This
to
is what I
push us
know how to
into the
do.
21st century.
This is my
And so
dharma,
we
you
are
might say.
actually, this
This is I'm
well,
doing what I can.
I know, but let me
This is
finish
what
what I
I
have to
do.
say. On October
I'm a
15th,
I don't think I'm an electable person. Like, I'm too
I'm not
disagreeable
saying that you
on
have
these
to be an
things.
electable
So
person, but
I'm
we're trying to build up a generation of leaders who understand what is necessary in this 21st century and within this crisis.
yeah,
And
no, I
that's
mean that's what we're trying to do, and part of that is building the hermeneutic in the first place. That's more. I think I'm more interested, or at least I'm more suited to working on this level, which is really on the foundations. I'm in the foundation pit, like I'm digging the trenches here. I'm trying
yeah, and
to
I
do
think you
the
do a great
work at the
job at
bottom.
that. I do. I think you do a great job at that. I've been a follower of yours for a very, very long time. I'm
Well, I
always asking you
appreciate it, man.
questions,
But
but
but I'm not gonna lie. I don't like agreeing with people. I much prefer disagreeing and arguing. So I'm gonna move on to
okay,
hopefully someone
goodbye.
who's got a disagreement. All right,
Well, I do have
peace.
disagreements, but bye bye.
All right, Law of Fire. You're up. Hello. Okay, never mind. All right, Amanita, I know that you mostly agree with me, and you're just gonna bring me more stuff about you're gonna like raise an issue that you want to bring to my attention or something, and that's nice. But I'm really looking for disagreements. Otherwise, I think I might be done. Actually, I'm getting a little tired of doing this. How long have I been doing this? How long has it been? I don't know, but I think we're gonna be done now, guys. Peace.